What's up? Ghost Fictions is here, and we're back again. This is a story where Issei became the Azure Crimson Black Dragon God and had harem with Graphia and Seraphol. What happens when things go wrong? What would you go through to protect those you care about? Join Issei as he and his friends and lovers fight both supernatural and Siren Forces, from destroying not just his world, but the world of Azure Lane and the rest of the universe. But will he be enough to defeat an enemy that even Lord Origin fears? But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more informations. Now, let's get into the story. Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is the pleasure craft of Mickey Haidu calling any nearby vessels for a medical emergency. We are located 7 nautical miles off the coast of Okinawa with a stalled engine, and my wife is going into premature labor. Mayday, 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 said a man in his late 40s over the radio. His name is Goru Haidu, and he and his wife, Mickey Haidu, were out enjoying the day on their boat, as they were getting ready to have their first child together. They have had 2 miscarriages before, and doctors said that this last time would be it for them, due to the strain the miscarriages had placed on his wife's body. Keeling down to his pregnant wife, Goru said to her, "Stay strong, Mickey, help should be here soon. Then we can go back home and celebrate to the birth of our boy." Mickey looked to her husband, as she was in between contractions, and said, "Please help me to pray, I really need it." She then winced when another strong contraction hit her. Putting the Mayday message on repeat, Goru went and helped his wife to pray for the safety of their child, and for help to arrive. Pacific Ocean. 10 nautical miles from Okinawa and 2 nautical miles from the Mickey Haidu. The captain of the USS Enterprise was relaxing as they made their way to their port of call in Okinawa. He had most of the crew getting ready for the stop as they would be there for 3-day leave. All of the ammunition was safely stored, and most of the fighter jets were in the hangar bay, as they would not be able to land on the island, which the captain blames politics for, and only had 4 aircraft operating at the time. 2 FA-18 Hornets were flying around the ship, keeping an eye on the seas, as the chopper was getting ready to pick up the docking caption for the US Okinawa base. That was until the international distress beacon went off on the bridge. It first went pan pan, pan pan, and pan pan, then it started to play the message and the location of the craft in distress. Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is the pleasure craft Mickey Haidu calling any nearby vessels for a medical emergency. We are located 7 nautical miles off the coast of Okinawa with a stalled engine, and my wife is going into premature labor. Mayday, mayday, mayday. As the message repeated again with the GPS data and the latitude and longitude, the captain thought about the name of the ship sending the distress. It reminded him of a Japanese colonel that served with him during the Korean War as an interpreter. The captain picked up the ship's intercom phone and waited for the whistle to blow. He then said, "Attention crew of the Enterprise, this is your captain speaking. I know you all are ready to get off this ship for 3-day leave, but we just received a distress call for help. So, all personnel on board man rescue stations, all crewmen rescue stations." As the alarms were going off all over the ship, the captain made the call to medical bay. He said, "Dr. Samuel, prepare for a very pregnant woman arriving in 10 minutes. "I know, Captain, sending Corman Thompson out on the helicopter right now, along with Ensign Chase from engineering. Ask him to see if he can get their engines running at all possible." The captain smiled as he said, "Thanks, Doctor." "No problem, Captain. We all know what this means to you." Hanging up the phone, the captain told the helmsman to set the course to the Mayday vessel, and to set the ship to flank speed. Following the order, the Enterprise flowed the helicopter and the 2 jets as they went to the rescue. "This is Skull 1 to Enterprise. Skull 1 to Enterprise, over. This is the captain, what is going on with the vessel?" "Vessel is dead in the water, sir, and we can see a very unhappy woman on the deck. She is very pregnant if our cameras can pick up the baby bump." "Understood, stay within range and keep an eye on the vessel. The MH-60 is 2 minutes out." "Roger that, sir." Skull 1 out. Then the captain ordered the radio man to get the Mickey Haidu. After making sure the connection was good, the captain said, "Attention Mickey Haidu, this is the captain on the USS Enterprise. Do you read? Over." "This is the Mickey, thank you, Captain, for answering our call. I was very worried that we would lose our only son out here." "You do not have to worry. We have the best people in the US Navy waiting to help her. She will be fine." "Thank you, Captain. I do have one request, tell the chopper to leave me. Well, I want to be there for our child's birth. I do not want to risk her waiting anymore. Will you please tell them that?" "They will. We also have an Ensign Chase on the chopper who is going to look at your engines." "Thank you, sir." Was all the captains heard as the chopper was now close enough to be heard through the radio. Back at the Mickey Haidu, Corman Thompson was getting Mickey into the basket too as Ensign was looking over all of the controls. As the 2 left in the helicopter, the ensign asked Goru to show him the engine room. Once he did, Goru told the ensign he was going to stay out of his way and pray to whoever was watching that day. "Thank you for the timely arrival of the carrier." To the untrained eye, the engines looked in very good condition and should not have failed. But to the ensign, 3 noticeable changes were made that caused the engine to fail. Taking his camera out, Chase documented everything and closed the room. Stepping out onto the deck again, Chase helped Goro with securing his boat to the carrier to be towed back to Okinawa. After that was finished, Goro was hauled up to the hangar bay and was rushed to meet his newborn son in the medical bay. Many of the crew had cleared the way for the soon-to-be father and were clapping for him and congratulating him. Say thanks for the rescue, Goro was finally with his wife, holding her hand as she was in the final stage of labor. All right, Mrs. Haidu, this is the final push, but I need you to push very hard, okay? Nodding her head, Dr. Samuel counted down. In 3, 2, 1, push. Mrs. Haidu screamed as she pushed with all her might until Wah-ha, wah-ha, wah-ha. The cries of a new life filled the whole ship. The sounds of men and women cheering at the arrival of their unexpected passenger were a joy to behold. Soon the captain called Samuel again and asked to be put on the loudspeaker. Once the cheering was down a bit, the captain asked to couple the boy's name, with the two replying, Issei Haidu. Today I, Captain Carol Castleman Smith Jr., hereby declare that Issei Haidu is an honorary member of this crew and ship. He is also granted dual citizenship for being born to a Japanese couple on an American aircraft carrier. Master of the watch, please report to the medical bay to enter his name, along with his parents' names, in the ship's crew book. I will be down shortly to see the newborn myself. As the cheering died down, Goro could not help but notice two small plumes of smoke coming out of the water on the port side. While he did wonder why those were there, he knew if they were important then the captain would tell them. Goro then returns to the smile of his wife and newborn son, who was sound asleep in her arms. Wrapping his arm around his wife, Goro kissed his son on the head, grateful to the whole crew for their safety and help. Unbeknownst to anyone below decks, Captain Smith and those on the combat decks had to destroy 2 mini-subs that had shown up out of the middle of nowhere. After being spotted by the Skull pilots, they surfaced and shot at the Miki Haidu. Unfortunately, with them firing in the direction of the carrier, the Skull pilots were able to fire upon the aggressors. With eyes open, the 2 pilots looked for any survivors in the wreckage. Finding 2 trying to cling on to pieces of the wreckage, Captain Smith orders 2 rigid inflatable boats loaded with US Marines to pick them up. As the 2 were tied up and gagged, a few pieces of the wreckage were picked up as proof of the engagement. As the 2 were brought onto the Enterprise, Smith and the Master of Arms were waiting. After being forced to their knees in front of them, Smith asked 2 questions. Were you the ones who sabotaged that pleaser craft? And 2, why are you attacking the Haidu for? Because they are hiding a member of our clan that need to be dealt with, yelled one of the prisoners. Smith's anger was at an all-time high as he reached for the one who yelled and spoke. Dose, that gives you the right to kill an unborn child. You sick bastards. You are so lucky we are a United States ship, or I would have you killed right now. Take them to the brig, before I lose my temper. As he finished saying what he wanted to say, Smith shoved the one he was holding back to the Marine, who was also pissed at the man. As the 2 were taken under heavy guard to the brig, another Marine brought a briefcase that had a vermilion bird on it. With the speculation in hand, Captain Smith went to see the couple and their newborn son. After talking to the doctor about their son and if he is stable to move out of the carrier, Captain Smith went into the small room that was needed ready for the mother and child. Seeing that both were asleep, he tapped on Goro's shoulder and gestured for him to follow him to the officer's mess hall. It was there that he had some coffee made and asked him to sit down. Goro at first bowed to Smith, saying, I must thank you again for your help and the help of the crew. I don't want to think about what would have happened if you hadn't shown up. You don't have to thank us, especially since your father lost an arm to save my life. Goro shot up and said, Wait, you're the young lieutenant who he helped all those years ago. Yes, I still have the scare from the attack that took us by surprise. Your father saved my life, and I had hoped to repay that for him. But they sent him back home and then the war ended stalemate. But now that I have helped you, I might be able to face him and tell him I have repaid my department. You know, sir. Had you just called him, he would have told you to not worry about it. While my father is honorable as any man can be, he would have told you to not waste away your life just to repay him. He never regretted saving you. Captain Smith smiled as he thanked Goro. What followed next was short and to the point. Captain Smith showed the picture of the engine that were sabotaged. With Goro conferring that before they went out for their ride, he asked the dock manager to do a tone-up of the boat before they got to the marina. This, as well as the information about the ongoing legal dispute between the Himejima clan and the Haidu clan about Shuri Himejima, who was disowned by the clan at this point and is being hidden by the Haidus because Miki and Shuri are longtime friends, and the unborn daughter, were getting out of hand at this point. Now that it has turned violent and in low of the US Navy, the government was going to have a field day with this. Captain Smith told Goro not to worry as he and the current US president were service buddies during the Vietnam War and trusted each other very much. Telling Goro to be with his wife and newborn, Captain Smith started to leave the mess hall. Goro bowed once more and also asked if they were going to Okinawa or not. Smith said, No, with the possibility that those two could be killed between Okinawa and Tokyo. We are going to the naval base in Yokosuka and handing them over to the JMSDF there. While we are in Yokosuka, it may be best to keep you all on board as the JMSDF and US Pacific Command are going to want to talk to you too about it. Don't worry about the interviews. I know the investigators are going to be quick and to the point. They won't bother you too much. Also, I have already called your father. He was busy, but I told him to call me back. I will explain everything to him. Nodding his head, Goro went back to his wife. Laying down next to hers, both herself and Issei were asleep at this time. Goro cuddled both her and their child as he too went to sleep. Had anyone been awake or in the room at that time, they would have seen a rainbow of colors emitting off of the boy, as well as a cute smile on his lips. 2 hours later. 837.87 nautical miles southwest of Tokyo. After 2 hours of signing paperwork and conforming all of the details of the rescue and the attack to both Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, JMSDF, and the US Indo-Pacific Command, USINDOPACOM, Captain Smith was out on the Vulture's Row, an open area located on both sides of the ship's bridge, and watched as the flight deck crew do night operations, as the ship was heading to Tokyo. While the crew weren't happy about going to Tokyo instead of Okinawa, they did understand the reasoning behind it. There were even a few of the female members of the crew, who had children before, that volunteered to watch over the child as his parents were talking with the media. Investigators are just wanting some sleep. As he watched the busy flight deck, Smith's mind started to wander. He remembered the day when he and Issei's grandfather, Juzo Haidu, first meet, and how they bonded over their shared love of trains in Inime. They fought in many battles together, sometimes having to fight side by side in hand-to-hand combat. Then he remembers that day was he, Juzo, and his team were ambushed by Chinese soldiers during the Battle of the Chongqing River. That was when Juzo lost his arm to save Smith from the wrong end of a bayonet. After killing the soldier who tried to kill him, Smith was able to stabilize Juzo for a medical evac, and told him he would repay the debt he owed him when he needed to. Juzo would later become a prominent member of the Japanese rail network, as well as serving in Japan's House of Councilors, while Smith went on and continued to serve in the US Navy, finally becoming captain of the Enterprise. While the two would be busy with their respective duties, they did stay in touch. This also included when Smith was stationed in Japan, and the two would talk about their families, their jobs, or the friends they lost in the war. It was no secret to the people on the Enterprise why Smith would leave the ship and then call in sick the next day. It was because Juzo and Smith had been drinking all through the night, and were both plastered to high heaven. Captain Smith was brought back to reality when he heard his phone ring. Going to his cabin after he answered the call, he and Juzo talked about the usual things like how their families were doing, and how their work was good or shitty, depending on what it was. That was when Juzo went into his serious mode. He asked, "So, was it really the Himajima clan that attacked you and my family?" "Yes, or at the very least someone hired to attack them. With the two who we think are actual members of the clan were there just to make sure the job was done. At the very least they will be charged with terrorism, and will be executed for attacking the Miki Haidu and the Enterprise by processes." "Is my new grandson alright?" Juzo asked, as he knew that this was their son's last chance to have a natural baby. "You don't have to worry. He is fine as well as his mother. I know how important this is to you and your family. While he might not know what is planned for his future, I would put it all away if I had to in order to keep him safe." "Yes, I know. You lost an arm saving me all that time ago. I know would have done everything to keep him safe, just like what we did today." Smith could hear Juzo chuckle, and then he said, "We will be in Yokosuka by the end of the week. We are planning on keeping your son and wife with us, as the authority will have a few questions after they finish the investigation and set the trial, which I can guarantee will be very quick. After that, we can send them home to Cowtown. Is it alright if you send some of their things to Yokosuka when we arrive?" "Yes, I will make sure that their people in Cow have some of their things when you arrive. I have to go, the diet is going to have a fucking field day with this. Good luck, Juzo. Hope this makes it easier for you with Shuri's case as well." "Thanks, Smith. See you in a few days." After hanging up, Juzo sat back down in his chair. He was in his shrine maison in Kyoto, but soon he would have to go to Tokyo with the full diet to hash out the punishment and the possible ramification the attack had on relations with the US and their people. As he was trying to relax, he felt the arms of his wife, Aika Haidu, wrap around him. Kissing her hands, Juzo said, "They're doing just fine, although they have to stay on the ship for a few days after they get to the naval base. Can I have you send those two to the base with a few of their clothes and some more baby supplies?" Aika kissed her husband and said, "Yes, I will handle that while you make those bastards pay dearly for what they have done." Juzo smiled as he held her hands with his right hand, his left hand and arm being the ones he lost during the war. "Yes, I will. Let's stay like this for a few more minutes, please." "Yes, my husband," said Aika as she kissed his cheek. After a few more minutes together, they split to do the things they needed to do. Cowtown. Haidu's mansion. A well-built man in his late 30s was hanging up the phone as he walks into the area of the mansion where he and his wife lived. These two were the main housekeepers for Miki and Goro's home when they are away or doing business. In the room itself were a small table, 4 chairs, a small couch, a small kitchen, a TV bathroom with a shower and a separate tub, and 2 bedrooms. One was for and the other was for their 2 one-year-old girls named Kuroka and Siren. They were born a year earlier than Issei, and have been waiting to see their future mate. Kuroka, Siren, and their mother, Fujimai Taoju, are a few of the last remaining Nekashu, a rare species of Nekomata. With the powers of Yujutsu and Senjutsu, Fujimai was able to help the Haidu in keeping their new son from prematurely dying like the other 2 children Miki tried to birth. As she and Miki spent more time together, Fuji, her nickname, noticed that Issei was absorbing some of her magic, then releasing the magic he had within him whenever there was a need for it. This also meant that both Kuroka and Siren would also feel the magic initiating from him, and stayed with his mother wherever in the house she was at. If Miki went out of the house, both girls would follow suit and stay with her, placing their small hands on her tummy to feel Issei and show him the outside world. The girls could tell he was happy, and it showed when Issei would kick rapidly when they are close, and no matter where they were, they could feel Issei from afar, and tell when he is happy or upset. This is why when they were informed about his birth, they wanted to go and see him immediately. As their father, Niktaoju, human, walked into their room, Kuroka and Siren jumped off their bed and hugged him. Kuroka asked, "Father, is Issei alright? I felt danger from where he is." "Yes, my daughters. He is safe just like his mother and father." "Is it close to the time you two join him as a couple?" he asked as they separated. Siren answered with a smile. "Yes, father. He is our Issei and we are his. I don't understand why we are attacked by him, but we are. We know he is the only mate for us and will do everything we can to help him as he grows." "I see, where is your mother?" "We have to go and take some of their things to the base in Yokosuka when they arrived." "We will take you to her, she is in a meeting in your room, father." They both said as they left the room and went into their parents' room. In that room was a TV that can be used to talk to the many people of the supernatural, as Fujimai was a respected member of the supernatural, and had connections to all of the major factions of the world. It was often here where she would settle disputes between not just the 3 factions when they could not agree, but also help out the other factions in dealing with issues. On the screen were Surzich's Lucifer, head devil of the underworld, his wife Sophia Lucifer, public relations for the underworld, and sister to Graphia Lucifuge, queen of his peerage, and a member of one of the 72 pillars of underworld families, Seraphol Leviathan, minister of relations between the fallen angels, heaven, and other factions, Gabriel and her brother, the leader of heaven, Archangel Michael, Violetta Carmilla, queen of all vampires, and Yusaka, leader of the West Yokai faction in Kyoto. He could also see his drinking body, Azazel, leader of the fallen angels, who looked placid from another night of drinking, probably with the leader of the Norse god Odin. Chuckling, Nick said, "Man Azazel, you look as bright as ever. Your harem is behind you with a water bucket, so you better wake up." This made Azazel shoot up into his seat, as he was more afraid of his harem than anything else. "See that they were not behind him," Azazel said. "Really, Nick, you really got to use my harem against me? You sure you ain't a devil in disguise?" Nick laughed as everyone else was trying hard to stifle their own. After getting a breather in, Nick told him, "Look, I cannot see how you are the leader of your people, and keep your girls happy if you are always drunk with Odin. Really man, how in the hell, sorry Surziches, you keep your head is one of the few questions their father can answer." As he finished, he pointed to Gabriel and Michael in order to get his point across. Azazel looked down and said, "Sorry Nick. I also apologize to everyone else here at this meeting. I know we are trying to do something that will change the world for the better." "Apology accepted," said Surziches as the others nodded their heads in agreement. Nick then sat down and he asked, "So, it is about Issei then?" "Yes, it is. More specifically the prophecy that our father made before going into a coma at the end of the Great War." Michael said as they looked at what it said. "This is what their father wrote. After many, many years of fighting, I have found out the truth about what this world was supposed to be. It is to show others that the supernatural world can live together and work beside each other, to keep our world safe from inside and outside forces. I have seen the future. This war is going to end with a draw, then the devils will revolt against the current heads of government, and establish a new one with Dereskins from a new country founded on the Americans. Then the 3 major factions will help the world through 2 major world wars, and see that humans are the key to saving their race. Then they will see the world in a different light, and while not directly helping each other, they would be helping the world. Then, one fateful night, Anekashu and her mate will find themselves in the company of a kind human couple, one who will have the misfortune of losing both of their unborn children early in the woman's pregnancy. Repaying the couple for their kindness, they would reveal to them the supernatural world, and help the woman during the last pregnancy. The trail will be waiting for them on the day of his birth, in which the nation founded on America will help with a ship carrying metal flying machines, and having enough firepower to rival a middle-class devil, fallen, angel, vampire, and yokai. The child, who will change the supernatural world for the better, will be born with a sacred gear that I created and a power from somewhere else. He will be named Issei and will have many wives, including my daughter, from many different factions. He will be the one to untie the world and the different factions in defense of this world. He will be the savior of the world and will have the blessings of both dragon gods and myself. He is chosen by the origin to help defend our world and others from outside threats. This is the last that I, the God of the Bible, will be able to speak. My sons and daughter, please lead our people during this new year. Please learn from the mistakes that I have made. My daughter Gabriel, you do not need to fear falling from heaven. Even though Issei will have many wives and many children, he will need all of your love to keep from destroying himself with this power. You will be able to stay as an angel and live in heaven if you so chose. He will love all of you equally and give you a child. My son, Mitchell. After the civil war in the underworld is over and the new government of the devils is established, please learn from my mistakes and work with the new devil leadership, and begin to create an alliance with the devils and the fallen angels. You, Azazel, and the new leader of the devils must work together in order to help this young man, for he will face many challenges and enemies. If you can, see if you can work out an alliance with the Norse, vampire, and Yuki factions. But only if you are able to get the groundwork started with the three factions. If the three races do not support him, he may not be able to win all of his fights. Azazel, please teach him to use his power, even before he is old enough to walk. For I fear he will need it very soon. I am sorry my son for what I did to you. Please work with your brothers and sister. I still love you, goodbye. Since everyone else except Nick has read the last prophecy that God wrote before he went into a coma, they waited for Nick to read it over. They knew that the newly born Issei Haidu was the person that the prophecy was talking about, but before they tell the new mother and father about the greater supernatural world and the prophecy, they wanted to know Nick's opinion about it. Nick on the other hand was in deep thought. As he focused on what Gob had said, it made more and more sense as to the power levels that he could see imitating from the young boy. After 2 minutes of thinking, Nick nodded his head and told those gathered. I believe that Issei is this generation's Red Dragon Emperor. Azazel, Michael, and Serziches nodded in agreement. They knew from the multiple wives and having them in order to keep that power and control was a clear giveaway. With him having the boosted gear, not only will have power, but also have many women who would flock to him. Sophia, who looked unsure, asked. Why do you think so, Nick? I mean, there has not been a new Red Emperor in 5 decades. Why do you think he is the new Red Emperor? Yes, I too would like to know, Nick, said Gabriel. We in heaven are unable to find the boosted gear, and it is only recently that we have found and rescued the user of the White Dragon Emperor, the Vanishing Dragon. Berg is still labeled as NA in the heaven system of sacred gears, and I am just not wanting to put all of our hopes in the young boy. I don't want to rush this decision and make him the leader of face of the alliance. The other women, except Fujimai, in the meeting also nodded their heads. While the men were sure that Issei was the chosen one, the other women were not so sure. Nick understood their concerns. While he did not want the boy to be pushed into a world he might not want to be in, Nick knew that with the help of those women and people who care about him, that he would lead the supernatural world with gusto. Nick then said, if the White Dragon Imperius is under the care and teachings of Azazel, as well as becoming his second daughter, then we were going to see the Red Dragon Emperor eventually. It seems to me that your father knew or at least had a feeling of what was going to happen, and made some sort of order for the boosted gear. I mean, he was the one to create it and made the gears for humans. Am I not wrong, Azazel? No, you are not, smiled Azazel. He went on to say the very fact that Valentina is only 1 year old, as she does not have the ability to activate the sacred gear, has made me question what our father knew, and what he hasn't told us. Although Rainer loves having a new sister along with Calwinner, it is also good that her mother is still in a coma. I really wish she hadn't met that asshole of a devil Razavan Lucifer and his father, the original Lucifer, but we were able to get to them both before they could do anything to them both. I think I will have all 3 girls join Issei in the human world as well as her mother as she wakes up. But I went off topic. How would we have found Valentia if she was not awakening the sacred gear? Azazel looked at all of the people in the meeting. Seeing no one answering his question, he answered. It is simple, our father rigged the system to show the use of the energy signature of the Vanishing Dragon, so no matter what happened, we would be able to find the wielder, and at least keep them safe if possible, or take them into one of the 3 factions if not. At least that is my theory on the matter. Nick nodded and also said, I can give you peace of mind as well. Well, I might not look like it, I was once a dragon hunter. I was camping with my mother and father in the hills of Oregon in the United States, when an evil dragon attacked us. I was only able to survive because those so-called saviors of humanity found it and killed it. They took me in and taught me magic, specifically dragon slaying magic, and how to find a dragon and dragon sacred gear users through their power signature. While they try to hide it, if you know the sacred teachings to see through it, you are then able to see their roar. I fought several dragons and I was deemed a master of the technique, but I would leave when they started to view all dragons and other supernatural beings as evil. That is how I met Fujimai. I saved her and we have been together ever since, but how does that go into Issei being the Red Dragon? Asked Queen Carmamilia. It is because of Fujimiya telling me about the pull of power from Issei that I would start to do the ritual to see through to his aura. It takes some time to do it, so I had to start it while he was still with his mother. Now that he has been born, the ritual is complete, and from the aura, he is released. He is the Red Dragon Emperor. I can show you all if you want. After seeing everyone nod, Nick chanted a few words for everyone to be able to see. After 2 seconds, everyone could see the 2 colors of Issei's power. The chaotic powerful crimson red, the same color as Surzich's hair, and a calmer, but still very powerful, black aura. The two looked to be evenly spread over Issei, splitting his body evenly down the center. While the crimson side offered power and warmth, while the black looked beautiful and had a more peaceful power effect. As the 3 leaders talked about what Issei's black aura could be, for even God did not know, Nick looked at the faces of the many women who were there. First, he saw 3 female matriarchs from the Gremory, Styri, and Phoenix houses. Vanillana was a very beautiful woman and was the mother of Surzich's and the 1-year-old Ria's Gremory. She, along with her friends Erika Citri and Ilana Phoenix, was in the meeting behind Surzich's, due to Issei being the one who their daughters would be meeting. The Frias, Sona, Serafo Leviathan, and Ravel Phoenix accepted Issei as their lover, then it would show the leaders that he is the right person. Nick could tell that the 3 older women were trying very hard to not finger themselves or lose to their lust. For they could tell Issei would be a very powerful person in the future, and wanted to have his children. Nick then looked to Gabriel, who at this point in time was wondering why she was feeling a wetness in between her legs. She knew she did not pee herself because this feeling was a pleasureful full feeling. She then blushed as she saw Nick nodding to her. This confirmed to her that she would have to go see a trusted human friend to ask this question. Then finally, Nick looked at both Yusaka and Queen Carmamilia, both of whom were in very deep trouble. Yusaka was trying her best to hide the fact she was rubbing her womanhood as she was looking at Issei's power. She imagined what young male Issei would do to her when he was able to make any woman feel good. Queen Carmamilia was not trying at all. She was most definitely infected with the young Issei now, and would most likely want to pound on the young boy when he was ready to take her. As the 3 Hades stopped talking, everyone could hear Carmamilia whispering, "Issei, Issei, Issei." They all could see that her body began to shake as she had a small organism right there. After that shocking display, Nick chuckled as he said, "It looks to me that our young Issei already has claimed the hearts of some very beautiful women. I think that to quell any more discussions, why not come to the naval base with us in Yokosuka? You can bring anyone else with you all as we will take care of getting you all lids." Surzich's nodded and asked, "I think that will be the best. What do you, Mitchell, Azazel?" "I will be there," Michael said. "As will I, along with my 3 girls," answered Azazel. With that, the meeting was over and the TV was turned off. As Nick and Fujimi began to take their sleeping kittens to their own bed, they heard a knock on the door. Feeling the presence behind them, they knew it was Shuri and her daughter Keno. Shuri has been living in the Haidu's residence ever since, learning that she was pregnant with the fallen angels, Kadra Barakiel's child. Before that, she and Barakiel lived in a small shrine near the Haidu's home, which was visited multiple times by the couple. After the Himajima clan learned about Shuri being pregnant, they attacked the shrine. Thankfully, Shuri was not there at the time due to visiting the Haidu's mansion, to help Mickey overcome the grief of losing their family dog, who had been with her since childhood. After police officers came to check to see if the Haidu and Shuri were alright, they told them that the shrine was destroyed in an arson fire. Afterward, they said they were able to catch the suspect and were questioning him on why he did it. He told the officers that he was paid to burn it by a third party, and did not know if it was a hit or not. He thought it was an insurance scheme since the man who visited him showed him a business card of a shrine building company. After hearing that information from the officers, the Haidus rebuilt the shrine in the mansion's backyard. This allows Shuri the ability to work as a shrine maiden, which she was when she met and fell in love with Barakiel, and be protected by Juzo. That is how the Himajima clan started to fight a legal battle to get Shuri's location found, and Juzo played hardball to reveal any information to them. That is why no one outside of the mansion, the family doctor, who served with Juzo during the Korean War, Juzo, and I can know about Akeno being born. Hell, even Azazel has not been told by Barakiel, just so he doesn't try to give his new niece presents that could allow the location of herself and her mother to be found by the Himajima clan. Shuri smiled as she came into the room. Laying down her daughter with the sleeping kittens, who cuddled up to her on each side, Shire motioned Nick and Fuji to follow her into the small kitchen. After giving them tea and sitting down around the table, Shuri asked, "How's my future son-in-law doing? I heard from one of the butlers that the US carrier was attacked after helping Goro and Mickey. Is it true that the people who attacked were part of the clan?" "Yes, Shuri, it looks like it is," Fuji said as she held Shuri's hand. She knew that Shuri was hurting on the inside, just knowing that her former family was still trying to hurt her, and those that she cared about were still getting to her. Shuri nodded and said, "I do hope that the Diet will punish those in the clan very harshly. Goro and Mickey don't need to be afraid of those assholes or suffer from them. I hope this makes them realize that trying to kill me is foolish, and that they should leave us alone." Nick nodded and hugged both girls, knowing that both of them needed one. After a few minutes, they could feel Barakiel join in the hug as well. He was staying at the house while Mickey and Goro were away, just so if the clan did find them he could defend his wife. After that, Barakiel sat next to Shuri and continued the talk. They told them the list that they needed to bring as well as some of their items. The other two nodded and said they would help in taking the things to the base. While Nick and Fujimai tried to stop them, Shuri held up her hand and said, "I know that staying here is for our safety, and I am grateful for that. But at some point, the clan will attack again, and we may not be so lucky again. I am sure that Issei is the child in the prophecy, and if he is then Akeno will be married to him. Akeno has told me and her father that she has been dreaming about Issei ever since she came into this world. If what God said is true, then any woman, no matter race or location, who has a dream of a blurred crimson and black man who is holding a small child, then that woman or girl will be with Issei. Both of your daughters told Akeno that they have been dreaming about him, and she then confided in him. Even if Issei is by any chance not the person, I will still only want him to marry Akeno. That goes the same for me as well." Barakiel stated. "I don't want my little Akeno to have to marry anyone else except Issei. I do not care about anyone else who has been asking if they could marry her when she is of age. Issei is the only one who is right for her." He finished saying with pride in his voice. Knowing that Shuri and Barakiel had made up their minds, the four started to gather the things in place. All the while they were watched by Kuroka, Akeno and Shirin. Kuroka giggled as she said, "See silly, you don't have to worry about you not going. Your mother and father are going with you and us to see Issei." Akeno hugged both girls, who also returned the hug and went to their room to play together. Underworld. Devil territory. As the meeting ended and Sersiches turned off the TV, he could see Serafo and Grafia were on their knees. Both were blushing very hard as they had come from their womanhood and were trying to clean up their mess. Sophia helped those two while Sersiches went to his mother and her friends. Chuckling, he said, "So ladies, did you three enjoy the show?" His mother cropped him on the head as she said, "Son, why did you do that? We are already married and we have had children with our husband. Why would you do that?" "Because mother, well you all have tried to hide it. You all have been dreaming of the boy, haven't you? When you three felt unwell I did come to check on you all, just in case it was poisoning or the sleep disease. When I got to your room, I could hear all three of you calling for Issei as you rubbed your womanhood. I saw all three of you come and saw you all pass out. After you three went to sleep, I used magic to clean you all up and clean the room. I know you still love father, and the same goes for Ilana and Erika. But at the same time, all three of you have been suffering. So, do you three want to come with me to meet Issei, or do you want to keep hiding your feelings?" Erika was the first to say, "Yes, I will go with you. I think Issei is the one who can make me feel like a woman, the way I want to feel." The other two matriarchs looked at Erika and then at each other. While they both loved their husbands, they knew in their hearts that they had fallen for the young child. They also knew that if they did not find out for sure, then their marriages would become shattered, and lies would be spread. That would not help anyone or their children, nor would it help themselves. As Sersiches and his group talked, Sophia was helping Grafia and Serafo with their troubles, although their troubles were more because of embarrassment and love than fear and anxiety. Both Serafo and Grafia had been dreaming about Issei since they found out he was conceived. That was when Fuji was talking about Haidu's new baby, and that it was a boy. That night, Serafo and Grafia could not sleep, and so they met up at the Gremory mansion, where Grafia had a spare room to herself when she visited her sister. After sitting on the bed, both women talked about what their possible reasoning for not being able to sleep could be. After some time, both women fell asleep, but in their dreams, they could feel awake. In their dream, both Grafia and Serafo could feel a strong but caring hand wrap around them. They then turned their faces to see a blurred crimson red and black aurora-shaped man holding them in his arms. They did not fear him, nor did they try to move. Then they felt this mysterious person move his hands to their left breast. He started to move, pinch, play, and love on these objects of pleasure. Both women could not believe that this was happening, but were happy to be feeling a loving, caring person pleasuring them. As the two girls woke up, they could feel that their clothes were still on them, and their hair was not in a mess. This confused the two as they felt the whole dream and thought it was real. Both soon saw that they both had the same dream, and were both surprised and confused. That was until they saw Sophia come into the room. Sophia explained that part of their family's power was the power of precognition, and what they saw in their dream was real. It was a future man they both would marry, and she saw a different dream. In her dream, along with many of the other girls who would be with Issei, Sophia saw Grafia and Serafo give birth to a boy and a girl respectively. This shocked both as they knew the devils had low birth rates, even among the low-class devils, as they were reincarnated humans. Sophia then told them about the prophecy, and told them that the baby inside Mickey could be the chosen child, which made both happy and a little jealous. The two, from then on, would sleep with each other in the Germery mansion along with two of the girls, Sona Citri and Ria's Gremory. They too also had dreams of holding a boy, a girl, or a set of twins, ever since Issei started to grow in his mother's belly. And since they all could not sleep independently, they all decided to sleep in the same room, which allowed them to get closer and closer to each other. Present day. Right now Graphia was blushing bright red as she was embarrassed. Remembering her dreams and now seeing what the young child looks like now, she had imagined what he would look like, and what a joy it would be to have him hold her and love her. As she started to clean herself, she could see Serafo in a dazed state with a small pool of her love juices under her. As Sophia and Graphia tended to Serafo, Serzichus had gotten through to the last two matriarchs, who had finally accepted that they too had feelings for the young human, and were hoping that as he grows, he would make them his mistress. After they helped each other, they too helped Starfall get cleaned up, and helped transport her to her room in the starry castle. Afterward, they separated and began their preparations for meeting Issei. Heaven. As the meeting ended and Michael also turned off the TV he was using, he could see that Gabriel was blushing very hard, and saw that she had placed her hand over her womanhood. She too was trying her hardest not to soothe her burning instincts she never knew she had. Sure liked a few humans during her years and a few angels, but never like this. This feeling of wanting her body to be touched and held by him, to be kissed by him, and to become a mother for him. Michael could see the confusion in her eyes and said to his sister, "Gabriella, why don't you go see Griselda Corder? She may be able to help you understand what you are going through right now." Gabriel nodded and transformed into her human clothes, which was a beautiful sundress with small white and yellow flowers on the bottom of the dress. Hugging her brother, she left in a magic circle to see Corda in her home in England. Michael smiled as she left, knowing that his sister would finally be able to find someone to love her for herself, and not just because she is beautiful and had a capitative body. He has been asked by many angels to marry her, because of how beautiful she was, and since she is the first angel they see when they died and came to heaven, they would always try to woo her. She would help these new souls, and those who became angels would ask to date her. Eventually, she would say that they are good friends, but not love intestines for her. But she would help those who wanted her to find someone else who would then, with time, marry. Seeing her feel the way she was feeling, even for a newborn baby, brought a smile to his face. He too has been longing for company, and he too had fallen for a lovely angel, a woman by the name of Charlotte, an American woman who had died due to a heart attack on her 25th birthday. She was still being helped in her role of heaven, which was gardening, as she was a gardener during high school, and up to being 24, when she switched to an office position for the company she works at. From what Gabriel has told him, she loved God and had looked to Michael a lot when she was in a tough spot. Gabriel set up a meeting between the two, which was love at first sight for him, and for her as well. Even though she had set up the meeting, Michael could see that his sister was a little jealous, and hoped that one day she would find the person she is to be with. Michael was brought back to reality when he felt Charlotte touch his shoulder, saying, "Hello dear, I hope you don't mind, but I brought you some lunch." Turning around to see his still young wife holding a small bag with 2 sandwiches, Michael kissed her with a bit more passion than normal. Though surprised by this, she reciprocated the kiss and stayed in each other's arms for 2 minutes, until the need for air forced them to separate. Seeing his smile, Charlotte asked, "How did your meeting go?" "It went very well. We will be going to the human realm to see someone at the end of the week. This person could also be Gabriel's husband." "I see, so the child your father talked about was born. That is some very good news. I just hope she likes the boy. I doubt that is a problem." And he told her all about the meeting and how Gabriel acted when she saw him. Charlotte heard this. She smiled as they finished their lunch in Michael's office. She got off her chair and sat down on Michael's lap. Holding her around her waist, Michael put his chain on her shoulder. Charlotte placed his and her hands on her stomach, and Michael knew what she wanted. "So, we are still not having a baby, darling?" He finished with some concern in his voice. He knew when they got married that Charlotte wanted children. She would have gotten married when she was still human, but she never found a man she liked enough to live with and have a child with. Michael nodded, saying, "We can try again while we are in the human world. I know you want a child, dear. I too want to be a father, but you know that all supernatural beings, except dragons, have low chances of conceiving children of their own. I know, but that is not going to stop me from trying. I never got to become a mother in my first life. But now, I will try every time we go to the human world. Even though it is hard for you to get down there." She answered back after kissing him on the lips. After a few more minutes of cuddling each other, Charlotte got up and said, "I am going to start getting our things ready to go. Will you be working late tonight?" "No, I will be in our room at 7 o'clock. So you and I can have a nice dinner with the sunset if you want." "I will love that. See you later, dear," she said as she walked away, with a little sway in her walk that moved her ass very beautifully. Michael is the only one to see it, and he often wonders how she is still at an angle, and he has not fallen. He turned back to his office and saw a small stack of papers on his desk. Smiling, he went to work and saw what he had to do. Griselda Corda's home, outskirts of London. Griselda Corda was in the backyard of her home, along with her husband and their 3 daughters. Ariana, Zenobia, and an orphan baby that they have adopted which they named Asia. As Griselda fed her daughters from her breast, she saw Asia sleeping in Tauji's arms. Taoji was switching between watching her feed the other two and looking at Asia and making sure she was secure in his arms. Griselda giggled as she asked, "What is the matter, dear? Can't watch me feed the girls, or just shocked that you have such a beautiful wife who can feed two babies at the same time?" Taoji did not say anything and got up from his seat. He then went to Griselda and gave her a passionate kiss on her lips. "I think that should answer your question, strongest woman in the whole order of exorcists in the world," he said after separating. Also in the process of separating from the kiss, Taoji had managed to remove Irina and put Asia in her arms. As Irina was finished feeding from her mother and wanted to see her father, she giggled as Griselda had a shocked face. She did not notice that Irina had finished and Asia wanted. As Asia sucked and ate from her mother, Griselda said, "You're not too bad yourself, second highest welder of a holy sword Taoji Shidu." Then the two laughed as Asia and Zenobia fed from her mother and Irina played with her father. After Asia and Zenobia finished eating from their mother and 3 hours of playtime with their mother and father, the three fell asleep. After placing their children in their cradle, Taoji and Griselda sat down on the couch in their living room, with Griselda in Taoji's lap, placing her head in the space between Taoji's head and shoulders. As the two cuddled, Griselda ran her hands through Taoji's hair and placed light kisses on his neck. Taoji held her very close as he played a hand on her thighs and another place on her back to support her. As they messed around with each other, enjoying the touch and love they shared, Griselda's mind began to wonder about her life so far and how she met Taoji. After an hour of them cuddling and holding each other, Taoji got up and started to make dinner, while Griselda went to the girls' room and checked on them. In the girls' room, Griselda saw that they were still asleep and was about to leave the room when she saw a golden glow appear in the middle of the room. She knew what one suit was and got into a kneeling position. Soon the golden light disappeared, and Griselda was happy to see her friend Gabriel standing there. Gabriel looks around in shock, realizing that she teleported into the nursery for the children, instead of going into the living room like she normally does. Before she could leave, however, she heard Griselda say, "It is good to see you again, Gabriel." She finished with a smile. Gabriel nodded her head, which was red with embarrassment. Then Gabriel looked at the three girls asleep on the curb. Griselda also got close to the girls as Gabriel touched each of them on the cheek with her fingers. Each of the girls had a small smile on their face after feeling their godmother touch them, with little Asia holding Gabriel's finger for a few seconds, letting go after Griselda kissed her on the forehead. As the two women left the room, Griselda asked Gabriel why she was there, even though it was a few months from the birth of the girls. Gabriel has been busy and had not had the time to come see her goddaughters. Gabriel said, "I have come to ask you how you knew that you had found the person you wanted to be with for the rest of your life. The young man that my father predicted has been born, and I am having these feelings about the boy. I just want to know these feelings better and know that these feelings are true. I have had many people say they love me, but I never loved them. Now, I have these new feelings that I have never had for anyone before, and I would like your knowledge about them." Griselda smiled. She knew from Mitchell that Gabriel was never able to fully find anyone to fully love, liking them is more of a friend than a lover, and was happy that she could finally be with another person who would be able to love her. Sitting down near the table, Griselda began telling Gabriel about how she and Taoji fell in love, and the feelings that allowed the two to become a couple. Taoji also joined the two after he put dinner on the stove, stating his own feelings during their time together. As they talked about their feelings, Gabriel noticed that she was gaining more clarity about her feelings for Issei, even if was still young, and would trust these feelings for the time being. If Issei did not feel love for her, then she will accept the feeling he had for her. Sometime later, their dinner was finished and Gabriel helped feed Asia, as Irina was fed by Griselda and Taoji fed Zenobia. Soon, it was time for Gabriel to leave. Asia was a little upset to see her leave, gripping her fingers in an attempt to keep her there with them. Gabriel kissed the little girl on her head, saying, "I will see you soon, little Asia. I will be spending some more time with you and your family after we come back from Japan. See you in a week." Asia let go of her finger, and soon Gabriel left in a golden glow, disappearing from view. Soon, the two patients heard a knock on the door. Opening it, the mailman handed them a letter from the Vatican. After closing the door, the two opened the letter, which had 5 tickets and the address to both the hotel and IDs that they would need for when they were in Japan. Griselda said, "Looks like we will be meeting the girl's new husband soon, my love." "Yes, it looks like, my dear. We will need to get our things ready for the trip in 2 days. It will take at least 2 to 3 days to get there." Placing the girls back in their room, Griselda and Taoji began to put things into their suitcases and got ready to leave for Japan, Kyoto, Japan, after the meeting. At the same time the meeting ended, both Queen Carmilla and Yasaka were actually in one of the many hot springs inside Yasaka's home in the Yokai section of Kyoto, where most of the Yokai and those from the supernatural world stay at during their visits to the city. They had been in the spring during the meeting, using magic to hide the fact they were both naked, and were cuddling each other as they watched Issei. They knew they loved the boys ever since the first night Issei's father and mother stayed in Kyoto visiting Guru parents. They meet during a party held at the Haidu mansion to announce the news of their first grandchild. Yusaka's flashback begins. Yusaka was the first to meet them, having been in the mansion for a business meeting with Juzo in expanding the Shinkansen, Japanese bullet train, service to Kyoto, with 2 more train sets. These 2 sets would be operated by Yusaka's yokai and service just supernatural beings from Tokyo Airport to Kyoto's central station. Knowing that Juzo still had a lot of influence in the nation rail network, she asked if he could and would do it. Juzo accepted it as it would allow more supernatural people into the city than the already established rail services that connected the city. After the meeting, Juzo asked Yusaka to stay and meet his son and daughter-in-law, as his wife had just informed him of their arrival at the mansion. It was then Yusaka could feel the magic being pulled from her soul and body, and when she saw Miki, she rushed over to the young mother-to-be. Yusaka then saw Issei. Even if he was still an inbred, she could see and feel him. Issei then smiled and kissed Yusaka on the lips. This made her blush like crazy, and everyone, including Miki, was shocked as Yusaka had her head to the side of her stomach as she was alright. Then they saw a small tear run down her cheek as Yusaka removed her head from Miki's stomach. Yusaka apologized to the young couple and quickly introduced herself, showing them her 9 foxtails and ears. The 2 were not shocked as they already knew about the supernatural world from Fujimai 2 months earlier. Yusaka was surprised that they were not in shock, that is of course when she heard a familiar voice say, "I see you have found your new soulmate, Lady Yusaka." Turning, everyone saw Fujimai kneeling down in the doorway along with Nick, Kuroka, and Siren. Yusaka leaped to the floor hugging them all with all her might. They also hugged back, easing Yusaka back down her emotions. She looked at her longtime friend as she asked, "Where have you been? When we heard your home was attacked by the West Yokai faction, we all thought we lost you." She finished as more tears fell down her cheek. Fujimai hugged her friend again as she said, "I will tell you everything, but first let us all go into the springs. It will be a long tale, and it is better if we are all relaxed, especially after a long day of travel." Nodding her head in agreement, everyone went into the changing rooms. After changing, everyone was in the private spring that Yusaka gave to the Haidu as a gift for their public service to both the normal people and yokai alike. After they were all settled in, Fujimai told Yusaka about the attack, and how they were funded by the yokai hunters who had been after them for years and feeling their home. Since she was still pregnant at the time, they would have to hide and rest, especially for Fujimai as she was close to her final labor. Unfortunately, they had to stop in Kotown as Fujimai had entered labor, and they hid in a large backyard. Unnoticed by the 2, the hunters were still following their trail and soon found the 2. Nick got ready to fight as Fujimai held on to her little one's title. That is until the hunter heard a very stern voice. "Hold it right there, trespassers. Or I will shoot you on the land of the Haidu clan, and your bodies will never be found." The hunters stood very still as they knew about Juzo's and Yusaka's relationship, and also knew that they would never be found alive by anyone in their clan. Juzo had been visiting Goro and Miki, and had brought his Sajidi team with him. The guards had stumbled on the 2 early, but knew they were not a threat, due to having met them some time ago. They were going to alert Juzo when they spotted the hunters and snuck up behind them before they could attack the 4. Soon enough the hunters were arrested and sent away while Juzo talked to Nick. My doctor said that Fuji cannot leave the house for a few years at least due to the strain your running has put on her body. Plus the fact that she just gave birth is another complication to her overall health. So, I want all of you to stay here for the time being. Nick nodded his head. He agreed with the doctor's statements, and was worried about his wife, but did not want to be a burden on his son and daughter-in-law by staying here. Plus there was the added fact that more hunters could attack the Haidu and hurt them. Nick was about to say something when Juzo stopped him. He then said, "Nick, I know what you're going to say, so I will stop you before you say anything. You and Fuji are family to Goro, myself, and Aika. So you will not be a burden to Goro or his wife. Besides, there is plenty of room here for you all, and then some. So you will not have to worry about anything. I am asking you 2 to help with the upkeep of the home, since you both can use magic." Nick was shocked, but after knowing the man for a few years he had come to experience it as Juzo's nature. Nick shook Juzo's hand and went into the room where his wife and 2 children were asleep, laying down beside them and also fell asleep. After finishing the story, Yusaka wrapped up Juzo, Aika, Miki, and Goro and said, "Thank you all for keeping these 4 safes, and for that you have my eternal blessings." But Yusaka looked at the man with a look of anger. "Why did you not tell me about their several?" Juzo held her hand as he said, "It is because of the information a member of the CIA, who owed me a few favors, got from those hunters. You remember the location where you estimated the hunter camp in Japan?" Yusaka nodded. Then Juzo explained that the camp also had a few spices that had been in both East and West yokai factions, and have been using them to find and capture yokai from all over the nation. He had the man from the CIA keep a tab on them as another favor after you and the West leader attacked the camp, to make sure that all of the spices, which he had a record of from the hunters he interrogated, and see if Yusaka all got most if not all of them. Unfortunately, 3 of those spices were still alive and were seen by the agent entering Kyoto. It is apparent that there is still spice here, and Juzo thought it would be better to keep it a secret until now, because the CIA agent had handed Juzo the locations of the spice hideouts just before they had their meeting early today. Yusaka was shocked to learn about this new information, while she knew about hunters entering Kyoto. They never tried to infiltrate the yokai sections of the city. To know that regular hunters had managed to enter this area was very alarming. Juzo then handed Yusaka a small folder and said, "These are the names and locations the spices have been seen, and this is where their main hideout is. You can use this information at your leisure. Also, you don't have to worry about the agent from the CIA, he already knows of the supernatural world, and was able to keep himself hidden from the spices." Yusaka looked at the files, anger clear on her face as she put them in a space only she could reach, saying, "I will be taking care of this myself after we are finished here. Once again Juzo, I thank you for not only the safety of Fuji and her family, but also for helping find the people who have infiltrated my home." She finished with a kiss on Juzo's cheek. Juzo accepted the kiss while Aika giggled and said, "Are you trying to cheat on your new husband, my dear? I know Issei would be very upset if he saw you." As Yusaka blushed bright red, Miki asked, "Mother, don't tease people like that. My son is not even born yet, and now you're trying to have him marry right after he is born. I wouldn't be able to have my little boy all to myself," she said as she rubbed her belly with Issei still inside. While she did not mind Kuroka and Siren being with her son due to them still being children, Yusaka was a grown woman and a leader of a faction of yokai. Not only that, Goro and Miki know that Yusaka, from what Fuji told them, had to stay in Kyoto to keep the spiritual ley line stable or the city will fall apart. She did not want her only child taken away from her, and was only able to see them when they are visiting Kyoto. Fuji held Miki's stomach as she explained that Issei and Yusaka would be together as if they were soulmates. She explains that Yusaka is able to leave Kyoto as she has a soulmate with her. That soulmate is the rock that keeps her balanced when she is not in Kyoto itself. Meaning she can live with Issei in Cowtown until he is old enough to live on his own. Just like with Kuroka and Siren, Issei is meant to be with Yusaka, and just to prove it, Fuji asks Yusaka to show off her tails again. After her ears and tails reappear, Fuji asked Yusaka to place her hand on Miki's stomach and find Issei's heartbeat. Once she was sure she found the spot, all her tails started to glow, first a multitude of colors, but then it settled to a crimson red and a black ore. Miki understood this as both Kuroka and Siren had the same reaction when they found Issei's heartbeat. After removing her hand, Yusaka's tails returned to a glowing golden ore, and then disappeared as Yusaka dispelled their presence. Miki felt better as she would still be Issei's mother, and would not have to give him up once he was born. Yusaka had gotten closer to her and started to get to know her better. After another 30 minutes in the hot spring, everyone got out and got ready for dinner. That was when another person entered the mansion. It was Queen Carmamilia. She was the queen of the vampires, until a rival vampire family started to force her out of power. It became so bad that most of her supporters had to flee Romania in order to be safe from persecution. Queen Carmamilia flashback starts. Carmamilia herself was forced out of her castle, leaving her son and his child behind. One of the reasons why she was forced out was because she allowed her son, next in line for the throne when she retired, to marry a human girl that had wandered into their territory. She was lost and her son had fallen for her as soon as he saw her. Knowing that she was harmless, Carmamilia allowed the marriage to happen, which pissed off many of the purebred vampire males, who were hoping to have their daughters marry into the royal line. Once it was conferred that her son, Lord Vladi, and Selena, his wife, were having a child, the nobles started to cause rumors and spread lies about the couple. At first, most did not take notice, but as more and more nobles talked shit about the queen and her grandson, the rest of the vampires started to believe them. Those that supported her were attacked and ridiculed and forced from their birthplace. What really forced her out was when Gasper was finally born. The pregenses were perfectly fine, that was the case until the night Gasper was born. Selena was rushed into an emergency C-section, as her body started to attack herself from the inside out. The doctor and nurses thought it was just the vampiric blood affecting her and the baby, so they cut her open, only for them to discover that Gasper was a mass of darkness as he was a damper, and also was the welder of the sacred gear forbidden Baylorview. As the doctor and nurse tried to stop his powers, he froze time and killed them, and cursed his mother in the process. It was only after his father and grandmother, who were unaffected by the freezing of time, could drain his powers that the boy was subdued. Both Carmamilia and Vladi were not mad at the boy as he was only a baby, and did not have control of his powers. Even with his mother only living 3 more days, she too did not blame him for what happened to her. After she passed away, many of those in the upper echelon wanted Gasper to be destroyed, and Vladi to lose the position of heir to the throne, to his very young sister, Almenheld Karnstein, who had just been born a year before Gasper was born. Carmamilias denied the request, which gave the nobles what they needed to oust Carmamilia. Large rebellions appeared all over Romania as they focused on what Gasper turned into, not what he was, making the general vampires afraid of him, and wanting Carmamilia to kill the boy. They then had Carmamilia's castle surrounded. Carmilla, along with enough guards, maids, Elmenhold, Vladi, and Gasper, were ready for a jump to Kyoto. Carmilla was friends with Yasaka after all, when 3 guards at the gate ran into the throne room. Their leader yelled, "Don't teleport, my queen. They have a spell over the castle that will prevent everyone from escaping. Several of the guards are retreating to cover the amount of time needed to break the spell, but if you do it now you all will be captured." Sure enough, there are spellcasters all over the castle, preventing escape without a large enough power. Carmilla could break the spell, but she would need more time to prepare the new spell. Time they did not have. That was until Vladi walked with Gasper to the door of the throne room. Carmilla tried to stop him, but he said, "Mother, you and I both know that you need time to create a new spell, and the guards are not going to hold the line for long. I will run through the castle with Gasper and keep them occupied as long as I can. I will take these 3 with me and will try to make it back. If I don't make it back, you will have to just come back and rescue me." Turning back to the guards, he said, "Keep up with me, and if we get separated, use the secret tunnels to get out of the castle." Understood. Yes, sir. Soon, all 5 of them were gone, and Carmilla started to shed a few tears, knowing that they would probably not return to her. She soon got to work as a few more servants and guards showed up, battered and hurt. Then they heard careers and roars as they had probably found Gasper and Vladi. Carmilla started to cry even more as her daughter and a few of the maids tried to comfort her. Since they were at the top of the castle, they could not see everything that was going on, but could hear multiple steps headed their way. At this point the new spell was ready and everyone got into the transportation spell. Carmilla waited. Once the enemy had blessed the doors, she vaporized them all with her power, killing them with her true vampire form, and laying waste to the throne room and the top part of the castle. As the transport circle glowed, she could see the leader of the rebellion, Count Diablo, start to yell at Carmilla, but she could not hear him as she then teleported away. As they arrived in Kyoto, Yasaka and her people got to work helping the injured and calming Carmilla and Elmenhold down. The 2 would be in a room in Yasaka's place for several days, as Yasaka claimed to, telling them that there was going to be a meeting with Azazel in a few days with something her son had sent. After cooling down, Azazel met with Yasaka and Carmilla, as her daughter was exploring the city with 2 guards and 2 maids, and talked about the current situation with the new leader of vampires. Azazel explained that Diablo had cracked down on those who still supported her, and was rounding up many for execution. He was also making a lot of threats, especially to the 3 factions to not interfere with the new order, and that they will attack if anyone interferes. He also handed a letter to Carmilla from her son, who had sent it to him before his wife died, just in case the worst happened. In it he said that he would protect her by using her, and will do what he can from the inside to at least get Gasper out of Romania, even at the cost of his own life if needed. This way, he would be able to see him and keep him as safe as he could, while they waited for the right moment to escape. This will also prevent more vampires from coming after Carmilla, as she was not the biggest target, Gasper was. While she was pissed at her son for doing this, she understood the reasoning. Diablo would have continued to attack Yasaka's people in order to get both her and Gasper in his grasp, and it would have started a war with the vampires and the yokai of Japan, something that was not good for anyone. Yasaka held Carmilla as she started to cry again, knowing that her son was right and was sacrificing him and Gasper to keep the peace between the 2 factions. Soon, those who were injured during the escape were healed, and Carmilla asked everyone to meet in Yasaka's backyard. Once everyone was there, she asked if anyone wanted to leave and find a new home instead of staying in Kyoto. No one wanted to leave, and after a few more days of rest, they all started training to take back their home. Flashback ends. Carmilla had just returned from a small trip to Tokyo, having met with Surziches and Azazel there for another meeting, when she got a message from Yasaka that Fujimiya was at the Haidu's mansion. Carmilla was also a friend to Fujimiya as she had helped in a local dispute between some humans and a small group of vampires several years ago. They had stayed in touch until the attack on Fujimiya's home. Rushing to the mansion, she soon leaped onto Fujimiya as she was excited about the changing rooms to start making dinner. Fujimiya hugged her with all her might as she learned about her exile from Azazel. She was glad to see her old friend again as the 2 hugged. Carmilla soon saw Kuroka and Shirin as Nick was behind them. As Fuji motioned the 2 girls to come over and introduce Carmilla to the 2. She hugged the 2 as the 2 hugged back, as it was their first time meeting her, and as Fuji would say later, she was their aunt. Carmilla then hugged Juzo, Aika, and Goro as they exited the changing rooms, to keep the 4 safes from the hunters, and allow them to stay with their family. They hugged her back as this was the first official time they met, the first time being when they had first arrived in Kyoto after escaping the castle. It was very brief and they have tried to meet with her since, but their schedules would not work out. As Carmilla was letting go of the 3, she heard a heartbeat. It was so sharp she could hear it. She looked all over. She then saw a magic circle and knew it was her daughter. Coming to her mother, she said, "Mama, you heard it too, right?" "Yes, it was just like your father's all those years ago, my dear, but where is it?" They then heard the heartbeat again, and now they were getting frantic, as a heartbeat that only those two can hear means that someone there to marry is in the area. Yusaka, placing a hand on the pair's shoulders, led them into the woman's changing room. That was when they could hear the heartbeat get closer. They then saw Miki as she was still working to get a kimono. The two then heard their own heartbeat sync with the one they heard and slowly reached for Miki's stomach. Miki was a little shocked, but Yusaka said not to worry, they would not harm her. Once the two touched Miki's stomach, they saw Issei as a young man with brown eyes and brown hair matching his father with his facial features resembling his mother. He kissed both of them and said, "I will see you soon, my love," before returning them to the real world. Both Carmilla and Omenhold were blushing bright red as their hearts contoured to beat at the same pace as Issei's, which further proved that Issei was theirs to share with the other girls. Yusaka would explain to Miki how vampires find lovers and mates, and what they had just done was confirm that Issei was their mate. Miki understood, although she was beginning to wonder just what was making these powerful beings attracted to her little boy, even before he was out into the world. Yusaka told her to not worry as she would understand once the boy was born. Looking into Yusaka's eyes when she said that, Miki could see and somehow feel that she was telling the truth. As such, she accepted the two, just like she had accepted Yusaka, Kuroka, and Siren. After dinner, Yusaka, Miki, Fujimiya, and Carmilla entered the woman's only spring, while the men had a few drinks in the dining room. As the four enjoyed the spring, away from the children and two males, Carmilla explained to Miki about herself, and why she was living in Kyoto. Miki understood everything, and when Carmilla finished, Miki hugged her. As they hugged, Carmilla could feel Issei too. The small gentle pull that had pulled her earlier was still there and was very comforting to her. Soon it was time for Miki, Goro, and the rest to leave the mansion, with Miki saying that she and Fuji would visit just for a girls' day out soon. As the group left, Juzo asked, "So, am I going to have grandchildren soon, ladies?" The two blushed as Aika pinched her husband, saying, "Don't tease the two, they are both tired, and you will probably keep them up at night with this teasing." Unfortunately, Aika was wrong as the two leaders stayed in the same bed that night, dreaming of what they would do to Issei once he was old enough, and what Issei would do to them in return. Carmilia's flashback end. As the two finished lamenting about their first encounter with the boy, Yusaka held Carmilla as the two tried their best to calm down from the excitement. Yusaka said, "How many girls do you think he is going to have? I am more worried about how many heartbreaks he is going to do to those human girls when he gets to high school." Carmilla said with a smirk. "Why is that?" Yusaka asked, puzzled as to why she smirked. Carmilla laughed as she said, "Because, dear Yusaka, I will take the man's virginity before the whole school. I will show them he is mine and no one else." She then felt a dark presence as she turned her head. She saw Yusaka with a face that would make any normal person faint, but to Carmilla, it made her skin crawl. Yusaka asked, "What did you say, Miss Vampire?" As her hands started to glow golden, Carmilla gulped and said, "Ours, he's ours and he will be only for us," she said as she buried her head in Yusaka's breast, hoping to get out of her own grave. It seemed to work as Yusaka powered back down, saying, "Good, remember that he is the key to stopping the three factions' Cold War. He is going to have not just you, me, Omenhold, Kuroka, or Siren. He will have more than us, and we are all going to have to get along. For his sake and ours," Yusaka said as she looked into the sky. Carmilla could hear the worry on Yusaka's face. She knew that Yusaka agreed with what the prophecy said about Issei, but Yusaka did not like the fact that Issei would start acting as the bridge between multiple factions after his 5th birthday. This is when Azazel, Michael, and Serzichus will begin teaching and training the boy into the role he, by what God foresaw, was supposed to take. Carmilla would talk at length with Yusaka about this, knowing that her mother instincts, as she acts as a mother to all in her faction, were telling her that they should at least wait a few years before they start training the boy, and hoping that the young boy won't have resentment to the factions for making him into something he might not want to do. Carmilla held Yusaka's hand as she said, "I know you are worried, but he will have all of us as well as his mother and father to guide him. He will be a great inspiration to us all, and will finally have peace between the major factions again. He will, with time, find that he is meant to be where he is. Just have faith," she said with a smile. Yusaka kissed Carmilla as they held each other in their arms, saying, "I know, and thank you." "You're welcome," said Carmilla as the two listened to the insects cropping in the night. After another hour of being in the spring, a female yokai arrived with a large envelope. Handing it to Yusaka, she bowed and left. Yusaka opened it to review the IDs, as well as the paperwork they would need to gain access to the naval base, once the Enterprise arrived. Seeing that everything was there, Yusaka told Carmilla to get ready for the trip. Nodding her head, she went to her daughter's room to make sure she was asleep as they would be busy for the next few days. Back with little Issei as he slept with his mother in a blanket, inside his soul a being began to wake up. It was the feared Red Dragon Emperor, or at least she was supposed to be male. She knew that she was a male host, as she could see the gender maxi in his DNA. So she thought she should be male as with her other hosts before. But she was a she, and as she pondered this question, she heard a voice. "Welcome, Drake, or should I say Scarlet?" it said with a booming voice. Turning around, she sees the man sitting cross-legged on a blanket sipping tea. Transforming into her human form, which was well endowed in all areas of her figure with a red dress that was full length. On the dress was a golden western dragon with the tail starting at the bottom side of the dress, and its head laying right underneath her right breast. Bowing to the man, she sat down like a noble lady and picked up a cup of tea. Taking a sip, she asked, "So what do I, a lowly dragon turned sacred Gree, get such a visit from the person who created this whole universe? Lord Origin." The older-looking man smiled as he placed his cup down on the plate. He said, "Is it not alright to see one of the two beings that I thought of as daughters to me? To see how she is doing?" Sounding kind of hurt at what Scarlet said. Scarlet narrowed her eyes as she spoke. "If you thought of us as daughters, you would have not put us into this mess in the first place, or have sent one of us to another world where we would have been better off." She finished as she had a small amount of hatred for the man who created the two heavenly dragons. Things were fine until Albion got a stick up his ass and started to fight Drake, causing them to fight in the battlefield where the three factions were, and getting sealed into the divine dividing in boosted gears. Lord Origin sighed as he said, "It was the best opinion that would not have killed the two of you, and still keep you on the planet that I need you on, expectantly now," he said with sadness. Scarlet looked puzzled as she asked, "Why?" Scarlet knew he was powerful. Hell, he is the being that created the known universe, and was the reason why she was even alive. To hear the concern in his voice was puzzling, to say the least. Why would he need both Albion and herself on this planet? Whatever he needed to be done, he could do himself. As if he could read her mind, which he could if he wanted to, he dropped the spell that concealed his power and aura. Scarlet was shocked, as someone who would be visited by him every time he was on Earth. She knew his power very well. She almost had to take a double look to see that the man in front of her was the Lord Origin himself. While he was still very powerful, he was nowhere near his prime, and the once brilliant white aura is now duller and a little less laminating. Seeing a tear drop down from her eye, Lord Origin smiled as he said, "Hey, I am not over the hell yet, as the humans would say. I still have a lot of power left in me." As he flexed his muscles, which did not appease her one bit, Scarlet asked, "Did fighting Terhixa hurt you, father?" Knowing she would know he was lying, he nodded. "Yes, it did. I am ashamed of myself that I have still not fully recovered from that fight. Not only that, but we were only able to seal the damned beast instead of killing it." "I see, so that is why Gob and those devil kings are nowhere here," Scarlet stated. Lord Origin nodded, adding, "Yes, well, I hope that just the 4 devil kings dying would be enough to get it to die." Gob saw that it was not working, and so he sacrificed himself to seal it. What's worse is that we could not seal it away from this planet. For some reason, it was able to anchor itself to this planet. The only thing we could have done was seal it away in a pocket dimension in this world. I have been keeping the barrier active, which is part of the reason why my power is not what it once was," he said. "So, are you looking for a replacement? And you're hoping that by this boy uniting the factions of this world together, you would find a successor to your reign?" Scarlet asked. Shaking his head, Lord Origin, "No. I would never do that to the boy. It is my mess and I will clean it up. But to do that, I must have help with another problem. In a world just like this Earth, I had given a computer programmer and an engineer, let's say some helping hands, in creating a functioning AI. Humanoid creature that the two would later call Siren. Yes, I know the name is kind of lame, but it is what it is. But the program was way too smart and figured out that with the capabilities of that world's humans, that they should not exist. Sure enough, I was visiting that planet once, and the original group of Sirens cornered me, with the leader asking, 'Are you a real creator?' I should have kept my mouth shut at the time, but I answered, 'Yes.' She then asked, 'What is our purpose? Why are we here?' I said, 'To help humanity better themselves.' The leader seemed to like that answer, but a few of the others did not and felt hostile. It was then that I talked with one of the researchers, Dr. Ast, if I remember correctly. He said that they were trying to keep the girls in line, as they were the testers of not just a new power source, but also a new kind of weapon. These girls were also being used to see if these new technologies would affect people in any negative way. They called the leader Empress. Then there was Observer Zero, Purifier, Tester, Compiler, and Amadeer. He said that once the testing was over, the girls would be free to do what they wanted, so long as they had no negative effects affecting them. Then he left for another meeting. That was the last I saw of the man. I had to take care of a few places that had begun to cause me some concern, as the stability of their worlds was put into question. So I was not able to keep an eye on that other Earth. By the time I was finished, that Earth had become a battleground as the Sirens minus Empress and Purifier rebelled against the humans. Not only did they almost destroy the humans on that planet, but it made many conquests of other worlds, and were using those populations as soldiers. I did what I could to try and stop them, but they had created a dimension that only they could use, and let's say that my abilities are not what they once were. So, I went back in time and gave those humans something like this. Holding out his hand, a blue cube, the size of a Rubik's cube, had a tremendous amount of power inside of it. As Scarlet looked at the cube, he continued. I told the researcher Anziel, whom I knew from Ast, to use the old ships of World War I and World War II of their world as a blueprint to create a group of people who could stop the Sirens. This plan is working, to a degree, but the Sirens have been evolving and are trying to reach something. He said with some regret in the final words he said. What are they trying to reach? Asked Scarlet, he answered. Me. Scarlet was shocked. She knew that there were plenty of beings that wanted to achieve the power of the Origin themselves, but were never able to because they would either destroy themselves or get killed by those who knew that level of power was wrong. To hear that there was a group of beings trying to become like him, and were causing him to worry was news to her. She asked, how come I have not noticed these beings? Because I have created a barrier and created it in such a way that they must fight through that planet Earth to get through the barrier. As he finished, he pulled out a map and it showed her not just her world, but also all the other worlds in the dimensional gap. She could see that in between the world that had red covering them and the world that had blue was the multicolored dimensional gap, the source of all magic and powers. So you've been using the dimensional gap as a blocker, right? Yes, it is also the reason why Office and Great Red have been getting along this whole time. As you know, the only thing that they hate more than sharing that space is having uninvited guests show up. So, you're hoping that this boy is the key to at least winning that war. But what about these girls here? Or you're going to ruin their lives because a lot of those girls already love that boy, and ripping him away would destroy them. I am not heartless. Issei will only be gone for a space of 10 years. I just don't know when he will leave this world and go to the other Earth, which is why I want so many people to be with him now, so he will be able to fight. This is why I am here. I need you to help Issei in his training. There's a reason why I chose him, and I think you will like what you will find. So will you help? Scarlet thought for a moment. She knew that trusting this boy for something this big was a very long shot as well as dangerous. But with the way Lord Origin was saying, if these identities are able to break through, they might very well reach their goal of challenging Lord Origin, and if he loses, his barrier protecting the whole universe from Cherhixit getting lost. If that happened, there would be not a whole lot they would be able to do to stop it without great loss of life. Scarlet looked at the man, saying, well, I don't like it, I will help. Are you sure the boy can do this? Yes, for he is the last of his kind. He smiled as Scarlet could feel something familiar. Her eyes widened when she thought of the last time she saw this power. She then felt the heat in her lower parts, with her instincts started to show through. Her breath became ragged as she started to sweat and hold her breast and mount slightly. Hearing this, Origin chuckled as he said, so, when will I have grandchildren? I want to spoil them re-10. Before he could finish, Origin got splashed by some tea as Scarlet tossed her cup at him. Putting his hands up in defeat, he said, I was only joking. Although, I think you now understand why I need you both. Since you both are the closest dragons to him, he will need to learn a lot more than what the others would be able to teach him. I also know that every one of the girls that become his wife will have at least one child. What do you think? After a few seconds of thinking, Scarlet said, I will see to it that the boy learns about his heritage. She finished while looking at the small child. She smiled as she thought about the man that he would become as he would make his ancestors proud. Nodding to her acceptance of his request, Origin got ready to leave. Picking up his walking stick, he turned as he said, then I will leave it to you then. Oh, do tell Azazel Mitchell and Surziches that I said hello and to behave themselves. If they don't, then. Scarlet chuckled at his words as she understood what he meant. She nodded, telling him to be careful. Soon she was left by herself in the mindscape. But she knew that when Issei awakened the latent power within him, he would be with her. Returning to the outside world, little Issei was being held by his mother as he ate from her. They had been waking up by a commotion outside of the door of the room they were staying at. The captain had given the new family the keys to Admiral's personal suit. It is only used when an admiral was on board, but he was still in the Philippines with the rest of the fleet for more inspections. As Issei was finished and was being burped by his mother, Gora came back with some diapers, just old shirts the crew did not need anymore, and some coffee from the officer's mess. After placing the sleeping Issei on the bed, Goro picked his wife up and placed her on his lap, as the two enjoyed the quietness. Goro told Mika that the captain said they would be in cell phone range in 2 hours, and to expect a call from her father, as soon as they are in range. He then said that they were now 2 days away from the naval base in Yokosuka. Mika just nodded her head as being a new mother on a floating city of steel at sea was getting to her a little bit. 30 minutes later they hear a knock on the door as someone asks, Mr. and Miss Hightower? Yes. Goro answered. Sorry to disturb you too, it is Zoluk. May I enter? Yes. Goro said as the door opened, and in came a tall white man with regulation cute blonde hair and emerald green eyes. He wasn't as tall as the captain, but was still tall at 5'11". He was wearing his standard U-side khaki pants and short-sleeved khaki shirt. Taking off his hat after he closed the door from the few female crew members who wanted to see the baby, Zhou sat down on the edge of the bed, making sure he gave enough room for Issei. Looking over the boy, the Zhou asked, "How are you all holding up? I know it is not baby-proof, but we did the best we can." Gently patting the sleeping boy's head as Mika smiled and said, "We are perfectly fine. Although I would have liked to have given birth on land, this is much better than on a small boat in the middle of the ocean." She watched the Zhou and asked, "Sorry if this sounds personal, but are you a parent?" The Zhou nodded as he said, "Yes. I have 2 sons and a daughter that is on the way. My oldest is 10, while my younger son is 6. Seeing your son here just reminded me of their own birth." "Oh, it sounds like you have a very busy household," Boris said as he switched Mika from one knee to the other. "Yes, it is. I just hope we can get back to Pearl Harbor within the next month. That is where my wife is living right now," the Zhou said with a smile. A few seconds of quiet passed before the Zhou spoke again. "The other reason why I came by is because I have a favor to ask." "Oh, what would it be?" asked Goro as Mickey fell asleep once again. As Goro laid her down next to their son, the Zhou said, "One of our pilots that graduated from Top Gun last year had gotten herself pregnant after hanging out at a bar to celebrate her graduation. She kept the baby and decided to transfer to Japan to teach pilots in the JDSF. The doctors told her she should be fine and get on board with us at Pearl. However, the baby had other plans. She just gave birth this morning, which is what you heard during the time you were talking to the captain. The captain was wondering if you and your wife would mind a roommate, at least until we are close enough to the naval base to airlift her off the carrier." Goro thought for a moment before nodding his head in approval. It would be nice to have another child in the room, and maybe his son would have a new friend. The Zhou smiled as he got up from his seat. Opening up the door, the Zhou motioned for someone to come in. After a second or two, Goro saw young Japanese-American women enter the room. She had long, dark brown hair, flawless milk chocolate skin, a slime stomach, and a perfectly shaped ass, hips, and breasts. Right behind her was Dr. Chase, and in his hands was the newest addition to the ship. As the young woman entered the room, Samuel asked the Zhou to help her as he was busy with the little girl. The Zhou responded, holding her up with his shoulder as he guided her to the large couch in the middle of the room. Boris saw this and told the Zhou that he would not mind her sharing the bed with Mickey, driving the point home by shifting Mickey just enough, so there was enough room for the 2 and the babies. The Zhou nodded in approval and with Goro's help, laid the lieutenant down on the bed. Once she was settled, Samuel brought her daughter over and laid the girl right next to Issei. The Zhou then excused himself as Samuel took the time to do a once-over on Mickey, making sure that there was no internal bleeding, and that her heart rate was still stable. Once that was done, he too excused himself, making sure to tell Goro to watch over the 2 women, as having babies at sea effect made even the most solid of sea legs weak. Goro said he will, and with that, Samuel left. A few minutes after Samuel had left, Goro watched as the little girl tried to move. Seeing this, he brought her closer to her mother. However, his little boy had other ideas as he too moved closer to the little girl. Once he saw that, Goro understood what the 2 wanted, and so he unwrapped the 2 and placed them both on the same blanket. Once they were together, Goro thought he saw both little ones smile. He chuckled to himself and began to wonder if Issei had already found a new friend, or if this little girl had already won his heart. United States Fleet Activities Yokosuka. 10 a.m. is a United States Navy base in Yokosuka, Japan. Its mission is to maintain and operate base facilities for the logistic, recreational, and administrative support and service of the U.S. Naval Forces Japan Command. The force's main component of the ship includes the U.S. 7th Fleet and other operating forces assigned in the Western Pacific. CFAY is the largest strategically important U.S. naval installation in the Western Pacific, and is the largest base that also houses several JMSDF ships, including the flagship of the JMSDF, JS Kashima, TV-3508. Fleet Activities Yokosuka comprises 2.3 km2, 568 acres, and is located at the entrance of Tokyo Bay. It is 65 kilometers south of Tokyo, and approximately 30 kilometers south of Yokohama on the Miura Peninsula, in the Kanto region of the Pacific coast of central Honshu, Japan. The 55 tenant commands which make up this installation support U.S. Navy Pacific operating forces. This includes the principal surface ship elements of the United States 7th Fleet, including the only permanently forward-deployed aircraft carrier USS Independence, along with the strike group she heads carrier Strike Group 5 and destroyer Squadron 15. Located around the base are several suburbs and large hills, making it one of the most beautiful bases in Japan. It is also near Tsukeyama Park, allowing civilians a chance to see the base from a high vantage point. It was one of the nicest parks with cherry trees in full bloom, making it a must-stop for visiting sailors. Today, however, the park was closed due to security concerts. It had an undistorted view of berth 15. It was where the Enterprise would be transferring the prisoners to the JMSDF to hold them for trial. Security both inside and outside of the base was tight, as only those who had already been to the base were permitted to enter. Even the president of both Japan and the US were waiting patiently for the transfer. Marine and Navy snipers along with JSDF snipers kept watch over the areas both inside the base and out to make sure anyone who wanted to hurt the two men would be taken care of before they reached their target. Soon enough, Enterprise entered the base as several tugboats met the ship at the tip of Agasuma Island, a weapon and fuel storage depot for the ships of the fleet and also for the many operations that are needed to support the daily operations of the base. Once the lines were secured, the three tugs guided the ship into berth 15 as naval supporting staff, meaning the lines to tie the ship into port. At the same time as the ship arrived, a man with a dark cloak entered the Tsukeyama Park, while the police officers were stationed there to keep people out of the park. He was bald, had a scar on his right cheek, and had blood-red eyes that would even scare the most hardened of men. He wasn't particularly well built, but he did have the strength to fight a few of the world's best fighters with his devil magic. He also had sharp teeth with jagged edges that would make him the winner of any Halloween costume party. On his back was a large case holding his trusty rifle, a Baird M107. It is a .50 caliber, shoulder-fired, semi-automatic sniper rifle that, through many years of hunting and killing people and binges of the supernatural world, had found that it was the best weapon to punch through the passive defenses that those supernatural beings had over them. Many of those beings, even the lower-level ones, could shrug off most bullets, while only taking light damage from the 7.62 x 51mm caliber round. However, the .50 cal 50-inch round can easily destroy the shielding of said target, allowing the next round of the 10-round mag to easily plow through the target like paper. If that wasn't enough, like if he had to fight a Satan-leveled being, the explosive rounds can do more than enough damage to the target to put it in the hospital in a coma. Sure, the weapon was loud. At 159.7 decibels it would be heard by all around, and his position would be compromised. However, he used a special spell that completely eliminated the firing of the weapon, only leaving the sound of the bullet traveling close to the sound barrier. It was his favorite killing machine, claiming over 35 kills with it, and he was now getting ready for his 36. Taking his position at the northern edge of the park, the man took all of the information he would need for his shots. Range to the target, wind direction, wind velocity, altitude and elevation of the sniper, and the target and ambient temperature were all needed to make sure that the bullet would land on the man he was sent to kill. Once that was done, the man laid down with his role at the ready position and waited for the show to start. At the same time, the ship's crew and naval support team had finished scouring the ship and had just secured the gangway, the bridge that connects the ship to the docks. Just inside the ship, the two prisoners in orange jumpsuits. Surrounding them were 4 guards each in full battle gear and awaited the signal to move. The 2 men they were guarding had their heads covered in a black cloth in an attempt to prevent any would-be sniper from trying to hit either one of the targets. Once the snipers around the ship reported that it was clear, the sergeant major ordered his men forward and down the gateway. The assassin saw the first Marine and smiled as he prepared his shot. Each target would get 3 regular rounds each, 1 to break the barrier, and 2 for the killing blow. 1 to the head and 1 to the heart. The last shot in this particular mag was an explosive bullet with some added firepower from his magic. Sure, it was overkill, but he was going to make sure that his traces would not be found. The assassin waited until the 2 men were in view. Then taking a steady breath pulled the trigger. No one heard the firing. No one saw the flash of light from the weapon. For the unfortunate Marine leading the gripping, all he heard before losing his hearing for good was the definitive whipping of air around a bullet traveling at the speed of sound. By putting both of his eardrums in the process, the bullet collided with the first man's shield and destroyed it. The Marines' combat protocols came into effect upon seeing one of their own falling. The sergeant major especially as he yelled over the radio about the shot. Yelling at his men to take cover, he began to shoot at the hill. He was a sniper during the First Gulf War and had been watching the hill the whole time. His intuitions were telling him that something wasn't right about that hill, but he did not see the flash, nor the telltale signs of a scope. However, he was proven right when the second and third shots landed on their target, sending a massive amount of blood and brain matter all over them. It was serial at this point that an assassin had managed to get to the hill without being noticed and was shooting at them. The sergeant raised his own rifle and began preparing the hill with lead as he shot an order to his men. The base was put in immediate lockdown, as the sniper teams joined the segment in laying down and covering fire, as those outside of the base fled in fear. It was hard to miss the massive amount of blood that flowed out of the grapefruit-sized hole in the first men, and those that were waiting to get into the base panicked. Both president's guards threw themselves onto their charges as more and more firepower was laid down on the hill. These were some of the best, yet that would not help them find a person who is using magic to hide themselves from view. But that did not mean that they weren't going to try, so every sniper and machine gunner from the watchtown began to open up on the hill. Sparing no amount of ammunition, the assassins loved to see their human puny attempts to hit him. It gave him such a thrill to see this much fire aimed at him, with a few even reaching his little area. However, he wasn't afraid as he lined up his next shot. He could see the leader of the guards yelling at his men to move the prisoner back to the ship, and the gangway was being unhooked from the ship. He could also see the lines being severed, and the anchors falling from the ship, as the big carrier was trying to move out of the line of fire. It was this action that made his fourth bullet miss its intended target, but it did hit the leader of the Marines in the arm. Severing it from his body, the sergeant fell back still holding his rifle. The assassin was impressed at the sergeant's will of battle, and instead of using the explosive bullet, which with his demonic energy would have destroyed the gangway and all evidence of his involvement, he changed it to 2 incendiary rounds. These rounds burn after firing and are oftentimes used as tracer rounds. However, with his demonic energy inside the bullets, it became a fire bullet capable of lighting the 2 targets' bodies on fire, leaving nothing but ashes that would disappear with the wind. He lined up both targets and shot the 2 bullets, lighting the 2 in flames, as the mariners jumped from the fire. Many would have 2nd and 3rd degree burns from the flaming couples, as well as other injuries, resulting in them somersaulting onto the pier below. Seeing that the work was done, the assassin teleported away, leaving nothing except his calling card and the davits in the ground from his rifle. Once he reappeared in the underworld, he sent his confirmation to his employer through his phone. A few seconds later, he received his payment along with a comment which read, "Thank you for your services. I will be handing you more work in the future, so keep the number." The assassin chuckled to himself as he disappeared again to his hideout in the underworld. Elsewhere in the underworld, a tall, pale man with long black hair and narrow, blood-red eyes. He was smiling from pointy elf-like ear to pointy elf-like ear. His 5 pairs of black wings flapped with excitement as he read the reports coming in. He had sent the assassin and he did a Morvale's job. To see the look of fear in his enemies' eyes, as they tried to keep people's claim made his heart race. His name was Cockabile, the 3rd in command of the Fallen Angels, and leader of the warlike faction within the Grigori. He had known about the secret meeting between Azazel and the other 2 leaders, and it made him sick. He believed that the Fallen Angels were the superior species, and were the only ones to hold the world in their hands. It was the reason why he wanted to attack the hideout while the kid was still in his mother's stomach. He tried to get Sue to kill the kid, but he wasn't too thrilled with the idea, and wanted to just kill Shuri and Barkle. That was when he turned to Akio. The boy was eager to do it. Maybe a little too eager now that Cockabile thought about it. If the kid was smart, he would have just done it without sabotaging the engines of the hideout's craft. In fact, he could have given the assassin the job and not worried about the consequences, but he had dealt with it now. Getting up from his desk, he pulled up the video of the event and sent it to all of his under-like along with the message. "Fail me and this is what happens to you at Red," and Cockabile went to the teleportation circle in his room. It wasn't monitored by the guards, and so he had not to worry about the location he was going to would be found. He disappeared in a flash, leaving a note telling anyone who entered that he was out and would be back tomorrow. Next day. US Fleet Activities Yokosuka, USS Enterprise. Berth 10. It was a very trying day for both the base personnel and the crew of the Enterprise. After the assassin finished his job and left, Marines and Navy security forces scoured the whole area looking for the sniper. They even went door to door searching for the person or any evidence that could lead them to the person responsible for the attack yesterday. The only thing that they were able to find was the calling card of the assassin, as well as the area he had set up his rifle. From the bullet marks on the ground, the investigators could see that he had some sort of bulletproof material to cover him, as several of the rounds were found to be impacted by something. In the Enterprise, Dr. Samuel was still in the operating room as he fought his hardest to save the Sergeant Major's life. While he was able to stop the bleeding, the sergeant lost a lot of blood and as a result, had to have his heart restarted after he went into cardiac arrest. Even now the sergeant was still flirting with death as Dr. Samuel fixed him up. The 8 guards were only slightly better off, mainly because they fell off the gangway stairs at the midway point. It was still a severe drop, but it only got them a few broken bones. The biggest damage that they got was the 2nd and 3rd degree burns from the incendiary round. That was the hardest part to help the men as it was difficult to touch them without them in severe pain. They were now in the hospital's burn ward as doctors and nurses rebuilt the damaged skin and kept their bodies from getting infected. Once the area was swept multiple times, the ship entered back into the base and docked at Berth 10. This was where the USS Independence would be, but since the Enterprise was visiting the InPen switched places with her. Once that was done, the base opened up again, but was only allowing personnel that was already working on the base or visiting family there. This however did not include Issei's group, mainly the women he would marry in the future. Sirs such as Azazel and Mitchell were allowed, however, as they were political donors to the current president of Japan. Since the ceremony to welcome the young boy home would be shortened, these 3 and the 2 presidents would be the only ones allowed to come. Hell, even reports were not allowed, and the only pictures of the ceremony would be taken by the Navy's official photographer and reporter. To say that the women were upset at this would be an understatement, but the base commander was having none of it. Hell, he even told the 2 presidents to their faces that he should even be allowing them in as the base was attacked. In his professional opinion, he would send both presidents back to their homes, as the sniper could still be in the area. And considering that if the sniper was that good to evade capture, then what was stopping the sniper from firing again? When the president asked why he was allowing them into the base, he answered that the people back home wanted the ceremony to go ahead, but with only those that were already on base and the two presidents. Not even the two Secret Service agents or the man with the nuclear football were being allowed in. After the base's guard searches everyone, the group of 5 is led into the carrier by Captain Smith, while SEAL Team 6, which was at the base before to train Japan's Navy SEALs, kept a watchful eye on everyone. Not only was the team watching them, but also the whole crew were. They had had enough of the bullshit and had set up their own guard inside the carrier, making the small group be searched at every cheap point. After what had happened yesterday, Issei and his family, along with Io and Aim, were taken deeper into the ship. The reason for this was that a .50 caliber bullet could easily punch through the steel hull and at least 3 to 4 rooms of the ship. As a result, the 5 took up residence in the CAG's stateroom. While smaller, it was still comfortable, and it would be due as their sleeping area until the ceremony was over. Upon reaching the room, Captain Smith knocked on the door in a specific manner. This told the 3 women guards inside that it was them and that everyone was clear. Opening the door just a little, one of the guards made sure it was them before opening the door fully and allowing the small party to enter. Once they were in, the men let go of the breath that they were holding. Hearing this sigh of relief, Mickey asked, "Why are your 5 sighing?" "Because, when you look down a hull filled with women with weapons at the ready, and just asking for you to make them use those weapons takes a lot of nerves," sighed Sirzach's as he chewed on Azazel. It was torture to him as it reminded Azazel of the few times he pissed off his women. The stare he was getting from the women in that hull was just like his pissed off wives. Mickey just nodded her head as she had already found that out from Goro. During the course of yesterday, the whole part of the crew was on edge as they watched the gun battle take place. It was exactly hard for the female crew members, all 235 of them, as each and every one of them helped keep the family safe and transported Issei to the CAG's room. Issei somehow knew there was trouble and was understandably upset at the whole situation. The only thing that changed was when a new woman held him. It seemed to calm him down, and so the most senior of the female officers, a warrant officer by the name of Emma Isabel, gathered the whole female crew members to provide the final defensive layer of protection for the family, and also to hold the little boy, as they all tried to calm him down. They rotated the women in and out of the room every 40 minutes, seeing it as a way to not only calm the little one down, but also keep the women on the ship in line and follow orders. Even now, as the ship was in the dock, the female crew members were not letting their guard down, and even if they were ordered to, they would not leave the little boy's side for a second, not until he was safely back in his home Cowtown. Back to the present, President Bill Clinton, after a second to calm his own nerves, finally said, "Captain, I know I am not in the military, but I am sure that the crew should, be doing their job." Before he could finish the sentences, the 3 female guards along with the female his turn was it to be with Issei, an older petty officer who had 3 children so far, shoot him the same glare they got out in the hull. It was only broken when Issei let out a slight whimper and wrapped his little finger around hers. The petty officer nodded to the woman by the door, who then told the woe that it was time to change. After a second, a new woman entered the room and gently caressed the little boy. Once feeling this new person, Issei let go of the finger he was holding and grabbed a new one. Once the new woman was sitting, Mickey handed the boy to her as she cradled the boy in her arms as the older petty officer said, "With all due respect, sir. You don't know how fucking long it took to calm Issei down. If I were you, you better keep your mouth shut until the ceremony begins. We all have no problem kicking our ass off the ship if it comes to it. You may be the commander-in-chief, but right now you are in a hen house with a lot, and I mean a lot of pissed off hens. I hope I made it very clear." Bill just nodded, relishing the hell that these women probably went through the last 24 hours. Once the women left, the 3 leaders watched in amazement as Issei's aurora began to wrap itself wound the young woman like a blanket. They were surprised, to say the least, but it seemed to them that Issei was accepting them into his heart as they comforted him. As the 2 presidents talked to the mother and father, Sirzach's whispered to his counterparts, "What do you think, Azazel? You thinking what I and Mitchell are thinking, right?" Azazel nodded as he said, "That boy. His mother must be that descendant of the king of the Dragonborn that father mentioned in his journals. To think that a Dragonborn would be birthed in this day and age is surprising." Mitchell nodded his head as he added, "We are going to have to keep as many troops in his town as we can without raising suspicion. If word got out that he is the last of the Dragonborn before he is trained, he won't be able to defend himself." Then Mitchell took a closer look at his magic, and watched as the transfer of magic flowed from Issei to the young woman holding him. That was when he saw that the magical flow was increasing the young woman's strength, speed, and power. Then an idea clicked into his head, whispering to the other 2 men, "I think Issei is solving the problem for us." "What do you mean, brother?" Azazel asked as he was puzzled about Mitchell's statement. "Look closer to the transfer of magic, Azazel. Tell me what you see." Mitchell answered as Azazel did what he was told to do. That was when the same idea popped into his head as he saw what was happening. Taking a moment to scan the women in the hall outside, Azazel smiled as his suspicions were confirmed. Issei was creating a small army of protection. People who had a dragonborn baby turned to keep it safe until it was fully grown. Azazel chuckled as he told the other two, "It looks like we have our answer. I just hope that Mickey and the other girls understand what is happening. I am sure they are. These women have Issei sent all over them as well as his power, so there won't be any problems," said a female voice inside all three men's heads. They looked around to find the source of the voice when it spoke again. "Down here, you fools." Looking down at Issei's little hand, they saw a little green gem on it. In a flash, the three were transported to the boosted gear, and standing in front of them was Scarlet. She was busy directing the flow of Issei's power as she said, "It took you three long enough to get here. What kept you? Boring documents that needed your signature. Well, it seems that you aren't too mad at us," Mitchell said as the three leaders watched as the Red Dragon Emperor, or as it should be, Empress, finished the power flow and turned to face her visitors. "It is a good day to be alive. Being inside the last of the Dragonborn really gets you heart popping, doesn't it?" asked Azazel as he marveled at the body of the woman in front of him. Scarlet slapped him as she said, "This body is not for you to argue. It is for Issei and Issei alone. The only reason why you three are here is because I have a message for you." "Who would be able to give you a message while you are in the sacred gear?" Mitchell asked. But before Scarlet could respond, Sirzach's answered. "Who other than Lord Origin himself? Give that man a cookie, got it right on the first try," Scarlet said as she tossed an actual cookie to Sirzach's. He caught it and after looking at it, ate it as it smelled good. Scarlet then handed a cup of tea to the other two guests as she said, "Father came to me after Issei was born. He told me that he needs a new ally, and that Issei is that ally. There is a group of beings that are causing problems, mainly due to them having access to a place that Father can't get in. What makes it worse is that my father can't deal with them because of 666. She stopped as the three leaders gasped. They also knew about the beast as it was Lord Origin who told them about it. It was the reason why the four Devil Kings and God had disappeared. The current leaders used the death of the Heavenly Dragons as the official reason for their death's disappearances. After a second, Scarlet said, "He, as well as the Devil Kings and Gob, could only seal the beast here on this world. They weren't able to kill it, and as a result Father has to keep sending power to the force field to keep 666 from prying eyes. It is why he can only place the dimensional gap as a barrier between our world and the worlds that have not been corrupted, and those that have been fully or partially taken over by the Sirens." Scarlet finished allowing the three men to take in the information she had told them. The three men were shocked as to what Lord Origin was keeping locked and away from their world. To hear that a hostile force wanting to take over their world was a shock. And then to hear that Trixie was still alive, and only seals were befriending it from wreaking havoc was even worse. After a monument of reflection and thinking, Azazel spoke up. "We are going to push the alliance harder than we were planning now. We must have a united front against both Trixie and these Sirens. We can't let anyone reach that beast or we are all in trouble." "Agreed, we must put away our differences if we are to keep this world safe from these and other threats," Mitchell said as he looked at Sirzach's and said, "I will be working to get the system to accept the changes that we discussed. Hopefully it will be enough to please both sides." Sirzach's nodded as he said, "I will also finish the last details of the treaty. We all must be on the same page. Hopefully I will be able to get the Norse and other factions to sing it as well." Seeing that her work was done, Scarlet sent the men back into the real world, saying that they were now at the ceremony, and that Lord Origin was watching. In a flash of light, the three men soon saw that they were back in the real world in the hangar bay of the Enterprise. Inside it was a small stage where they, the two presidents and Captain Smith, were sitting as monks from the nearby temple and shrine practices, gave the crew in ceremony prayer, and wished the Shinto gods to protect the ceremony. Once that was done, the President of Japan gave his speech as he pressed the men and women of the Enterprise for their quick and decisive actions during the birthing of Issei. He then handed Captain Smith a sword made out of the finest material as a gift to both himself and the crew, as well as authorizing a special award from both houses of Japan's government to give to each member of the crew. It was a deep purple bar, with the crest of the Hideout family in the middle. On each side was an F-14 Tomcat, and in the background was the ship itself. It was called the Guardian of the Family Award, and after a brief discussion between the head of the US Navy and President Clint, allowed any service member of the Navy Marines to wear it as part of their standard uniform. After giving the awards to the ship, President Clinton addressed the crew and reporters. He told them that he was proud of their actions and gave the ship his first Presidential Unit citation. After saying a few more words, Clinton gave the mic to Captain Smith, as he told the whole crew that they have gone far beyond their duty and were proud to be their captain. Then it was finally time for Goro to give his personal thanks to the crew. He thanked all of them for the kindness they have shown him and his family and for rescuing them. He then brought up Mickey and Issei, who was in his mother's arms, and said that if it wasn't for them and their actions, he could have lost his life or had lost his wife and son. He then bowed along with Mickey, and formally apologized to the crew for dragging them into a fight that they did not need to be in. The crew all stood up at once and saluted the family. Goro was shocked at this. That was, however, the most senior of the enlisted men. Command Master Chief Petty Officer Thompson came up to the stage and told Goro that most of the crew either had children themselves or had a younger sibling, and all of the crew looked at Issei as one of their own. A child born on the ship is always entered into the ship's log as an unofficial ensign, and it was a tradition that he himself had happened when his father brought him onto the former Enterprise CV-6 just before the attack on Pearl Harbor. Holding out his hand, CMCP Thompson asked if Goro and Mickey would allow him to pin a gold-colored bar with the letter CVN65 on Issei's shirt. The two agreed, and as the CMCP pinned Issei, two more crewmen brought out the original bell for the original Enterprise. After it rang a few times, the crew saluted the boy as he giggled in his mother's arms. After the ceremony and handling of Issei's American-Japanese birth certificate, the Hideout family left the hangar to gather their things from the two rooms they had stayed in. As they left, Sirzech's, Mitchell, and Azazel handed out pamphlets of several locations that they each owned as businesses and their places of worship that the crew could go to free of charge. It was their way of saying thank you for their services, and while they wished to do more, it would be up to Issei to decide when he was ready to make that decision. Once that was done and the captain dismissed the ship's crew for their deserved 2-week leave, the three leaders asked to speak with President Clinton and Captain Smith alone. Once out of earshot of the crew, the three leaders told the two men about what Issei had done to the women of the crew. Both men had already experienced the supernatural. The president having at least one representative from the three factors to facilitate any operations that would need to have the leader of the United States to be aware of. This included informing him of bad actors in his country and giving their people the authorization to act. Out of all of the nations in the human realm, the USA was the one where supernatural beings had to be careful the most. Service to say, if there was a supernatural problem, then the president had to be informed. Captain Smith on the other hand saved the life of an angel, devil, and fallen angel on the same day. Captain Smith was going to explain his story when he saw the three leaders heading to them. Once the leaders arrived, the men told the two about what they had seen. After they finished their explanation, both men agreed to allow the women to return to Issei once their deployment was finished. Which, according to Naval Command, would be Pearl Harbor, as the ship would be heading back to Virginia for a total refit and refueling. Since the nuclear reactor's needs can only be attended to in Newport News shipyards, it would have a full Atlantic-based crew to make things easier. The three men smiled in agreement and offered to cover the cost of moving the women from Pearl to Cowtown. Hell, they even said that they will hire movers to take care of the women's and their families' stuff, just to make the deal even sweeter to the ears of the president. This made the man smile as he and Captain Smith left to finish some documents. Soon enough, Issei and his parents had returned to the hangar bay with their things, and were saying goodbye to the crew. While the men of the crew hugged and shook hands with the mother and father, the women were busy saying their last goodbyes to Issei. The older women were able to hold their emotions better than the younger ones, as they wiped a few small tears from their faces. The one who was particularly emotional was the young woman who had entered during this small meeting. Her name was Grace Harper. She was a young and energetic 20 years old. Her chest size was 38 with a slim waist. Her hips were just the right size that made most of the Cavalans men she encountered try to woo her, as they were perfect to carry that man's child. Her hair was a beautiful hat of red that she got from her mother, while her eyes were sea blue. It was no surprise to anyone that she was hit on by a lot of the singles men that she had classes with. This made her worried about being on the Enterprise. Because when she got her duty slip, it would be her first time on a ship since graduating from the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. To make it even more difficult, it was her first time at sea in a command position. She was in charge of the officers' mess hall. While it was a no-combat position, it was still stressful as she only had one other female as part of her command. Having to make sure that the men she was under and solve the usual scrabbles that happened during a long deployment had taken a small toll on her. While her training had prepared her for the daily issues of the command, she still was learning, and the other officers had often made a point to haze her whenever something wasn't finished quickly, or if she made a mistake. The past 3 days, however, she was feeling refreshed. Something she contributed to Issei being born. Even with the craziness that had happened, she just left less stressed out, and she noticed herself that every time she saw Issei, she would bring him ice cream. She felt even happier than when she was away from him. As she held the boy, as she was the last to say goodbye to him, she couldn't help but shed a few tears as she wished to stay with him. She couldn't understand why she wanted to be with him, but she knew she had to finish her deployment before she would be able to see the boy again. Soon, Issei, his mother and father had to leave, and as they left, they waved back at the crew before walking down the gangway to the awaiting vehicles. Grace waved back as she tried to hold back the few tears in her eyes. The warrant officer, his name was Emilia, came up behind her and gave the young woman a hug. Grace melted into it as she started to cry, the emotions that she was trying to hide from those of her command finally broken through. Emilia held onto her as she too had tears well up in her own eyes as she said, You don't have to keep your emotions so close to you. All of us are feeling the same as you right now. So let it go. Allow yourself this moment of time to gather yourself. Emily looked back to the other female crew members, seeing that they too had become emotional and were huddling together. Emily gently guided Grace to the huddle, and with some coaxing, got everyone in the huddle to wrap their arms around each other. As Issei and his family along with the 3 leaders made their way to the awaiting vehicles, the security detail was leading the group of females that had been patiently waiting for their time to meet Issei. Once they were together, everyone was guided into the special limousine that the leader had created with magic. Once everyone was in, the security detail climbed into their Humvees and began the trip to the Hyudu's estate in Cowtown. While they traveled, Mickey helped the girls and women introduce themselves to Issei, as each took a turn holding him in their respective arms. Each time Issei was in a new set of arms, Scarlet would begin to twist his energy into the magic of the person holding him, as he nuzzled his head into each woman's breast. Bor laughed as he told them that he was a breast man, and would probably want to milk each breast when he was older. This earned him a slap from Mickey, who told her husband that Issei was not going to be a perverted person like he was. Azazel laughed at Goro's expense until Mickey also slapped him too. Looking at him in shock, Mickey told him that if he taught Issei anything prevented, then she wouldn't mind teaching him to behave too. Azazel cowered in fear while Michael and Serzach's chuckled at his reaction to Mickey. Issei on the other hand was almost done being introduced to his girls. The last 4 were Asia, Xianvia, Arena and Rias. When it was the church trio, which everyone had nicknamed the 3, turn. Issei rubbed his head on each of the 3's heads while they did the same in turn. Once the transfer was complete, Issei and the 3 cuddled each other as they giggled and cooked, enjoying the presence of each other in the moment. As they did that, Rias was talking to her new friend, Akeno, and her longtime friend Sona Saoirse. Sona had come along with her mother and sister, as both had confirmed with the leaders about having dreams about Issei. What they did not know was that Sona had also had the dreams as well. However, she did have the dream. She just never told anyone about them because she did not want to be in an arranged marriage. That changed when Issei was handed to her, her perspective on him changed. Now she did not think that being with Issei was bad, as she thought it would have been as she and him were stranded into each other's soul. It was then that Sona saw what everyone else had seen. Seeing her future with him was all she needed to push the thought of spending her time with him and becoming a part of his family through. Now she, along with Rias and Akeno, were getting to know each other, while Rias awaited her turn. They each had met before the Enterprise reached the docks, and while they did talk then, it wasn't as in-depth as what they were doing now. Each hit it off right away as each had something that complement each other. Especially Sona and Akeno, as the 2 were into the use of punishment being enjoyable, while Rias and Akeno liked to tease people. Soon enough, Issei made his way to her, crawling along the seats towards Rias. Seeing this, Rias picked the young boy up and placed him on her lap. Issei cooked and giggled as Rias hugged him, feeling the power that lies within him transferred into her body. Once that was finished, Rias felt her body start to get hotter and hotter. This hasn't happened to anyone before her, so she was going to say something, but before she did, Issei laced onto her neck. She felt the fangs of Issei enter her as the heat continued to build. Soon everyone else saw that Rias was beginning to glow, a deeper crimson red than her brother's hair. Acting quickly, the leaders applied magic to the window to keep the light from the 2 escaping from the limo. The light got brighter and brighter until everyone had to shield their eyes from the light. Meanwhile, Rias opened her eyes to see an old Roman Colosseum. She was shocked that she was in the middle of this place when she was just in the limousine. But then she remembered her dreams. This place was the same place her dreams have taken her to. Sure enough, it was the Colosseum of the Dragonborn, as all around her in the bricks were carvings of humans with dragon horns, wings and tails. One in particular had 7 pairs of wings on his back, 3 horns on his head, and 4 tails. As she got closer, she saw that there was a crown on this person's head, as his tail was wrapped around several other people. She touches the man, tracing the man's outline. She then heard a voice. "You have finally arrived, my dear. Welcome to the Dragonborn domain." Turning around, she saw the man that was in the stone. He was as tall as her brother with his 7 pairs of wings in crimson red. His actual face had a strong chin and softer cheekbones. His 3 horns were carved in colored black, with crimson red lines swirling from the tip of his horns down to his head. From his back, his 4 tails appeared and wigged back and forth as he walked to her. Kneeling down to her, Issei's long-gone ancestor patted the young girl's head as he said, "It is good to see you in person this time. I am sure it is nicer to see my face." Rias just nodded as she hugged the man. She had seen the very outline of the man in her dreams from time to time, and had wondered if he was Issei or not. Now that she saw him here, she knew that it was the ancestor that she had read about in her studies. The man chuckled as he began to tell her what her duties to Issei would be. She would be his queen, to watch over the rest of the harem whenever Issei was unavailable. She would also become the rock of the harem, while Issei was keystone. Whenever Issei needed guidance, or a push in the right direction, it would be her guiding him. He also told her to look to the other girls for direction and help whenever she herself needed it. She must be able to accept the help of others, and make sure to share in the love that Issei gives. Because if cracks start to form in the harem, then Issei would fall to darkness, and lose the only light that the universe has. Riaz nodded as she understood the implications of what he said. During her free time in between her lessons to learn about dragons and dragon-type sacred gears. Well, there was a lot of information out there about dragons and sacred gears. Ever one of the books and information she could get her hands on told her that if a dragon's harem had a falling out or was destroyed by enemies, then the dragon or user of dragon sacred gear would lose their minds with grief and lay waste to everything he or she touched. It was imperative to the man that she understood what would have happened if Issei fell to darkness. Having heard her mind, the man smiled as he pulled Riaz away from him. Looking into her eyes, the man smiled as he saw the fire that would become Issei's guiding light showed bright within them. Riaz was going to ask a few questions about his race, and some more about why Issei is the last. However, the man placed his finger on her lips to hush her before speaking. Everything will come to you in time. You don't need to know everything about our race or the reason why Issei is the last. You will know when the time comes, not before or after. However, use that inquisitive mind to go use and get to know the other girls. Get to know the likes and dislikes of them and share in the love Issei will show you. The man looked around as he felt the ground in the astral plane shake. Looking back to Riaz, he told her that it was time to return to Issei. Standing back up, the man turned and spread his wings to leave. Before he left, he turned his head and told her that he and his wife will be watching him and her. If they ever need guidance, then look to the stars during the night of the full moon. After he said that, the man left, leaving a puzzled Riaz to return to the real world. Real world. Riaz soon opened her eyes when she returned to the real world, releasing that she along with the rest of the girls and older women were now in Issei's new room in the Haidu mansion. Looking around, she saw everyone was talking in small groups as they changed into nightgowns. As she looked around, her mother noticed that she had awakened and spoke. Hey there, sleepyhead, I thought you would still be asleep. Did not having Issei in your arms wake you up? Riaz was taken aback by what her mother said until she realized that Issei was not in the room. Everyone else including Asia, Irina and Zenobia were in the room, but Issei. She started to move but felt the hand of Akeno stop her. Turning her head to see her, Akeno told Riaz that Mickey had asked to have at least the first night of Issei being in the home. Sona backed Akeno by telling Riaz that Mickey knew that it was selfish to keep Issei during the night, as the girls would only be in the Haidu home during the evening and early morning, until Issei was old enough to defend their honor from anyone in the supernatural world that wanted to give any one of them grief. Riaz simply nodded and told everyone that she just wanted to say goodnight to Issei. She told the other that Issei was and always will be Mickey's child, and that she had the right to have her son with her whenever she wished until Issei was at an age to say what he wanted to do. She, along with the others, must be willing to give her the time she wished without fighting over him. It would just upset the boy and make a division in not just the harem, but also in Issei's family. To say that everyone was surprised, especially those who knew Riaz for the longest time, by how mature she sounded and the way she spoke. It was like she was leading the group in a set direction, and she would be taking the role as mother of the harem. Venelana was especially surprised to see her daughter in this new light, and wonder if being with Issei was really changing her daughter for the better. Riaz was a sheltered child, something that Venelana had not wished for her daughter to be. Unfortunately, when she was a newborn, some enemies of Cerzech's and Zeoticus, Riaz's father, had kidnapped her and were holding her for ransom. Both men did not take too kindly to this and laid waste to the group. However, the incident made both men pamper Riaz to a dangerous degree. Whatever she wanted when she was 1 and 2 she got. If she wanted to have her big brother to play with her because Sona, her only friend allowed by both men, he would drop everything and play with her. Venelana herself also pampered her as she remembered the feeling of dread and anxiety while she waited for the two men to return. But it was not to the extent of what her brother and father were doing. She was firmly against Riaz only having Sona as a friend, and while she did pamper her, most of the time she did have Riaz do something to work for it. Like helping the maids with dinner or helping with the laundry. However, it was hard for her to keep her son, and soon-to-be former husband from spoiling her. Even at the age of 3, Riaz accepted to have things her way all the time. And while she was the daughter of a duke in Devil Society, that did not mean she could have everything she wanted. Seeing this new side of Riaz made Venelana feel proud of her choice to disregard what her husband wanted, which was to marry her to another high devil class family, once she was at an appropriate age to be engaged. Seeing Riaz act this way was great and gave hope to Venelana about her daughter's future. Riaz by this time had finished changing and disappeared from the room. She was looking for Issei, and she did not see anyone who could have given her directions to Issei's mother and father's room. She soon got lost in the big mansion and was about to use magic when her nose picked up a familiar smell. Sniffing the air, Riaz began to follow the scent. It finally led her to a set of double doors. Pushing it open just a little, Riaz peeked inside to see Mickey in a rocking chair with Issei asleep in her arms. Mickey was singing to him a lullaby, while his father was already asleep in their bed. Riaz was about to leave when Mickey said, "It is alright Riaz. You can come in. I won't bid." Mickey looked up and smiled at Riaz as the young girl entered the room. Riaz was about to say an apology to Mickey, but Mickey placed a finger on her lips, shing her. Mickey simply nodded at the girl and picked her up into her arms, while Riaz helped hold Issei. Mickey knew what Riaz wanted, as Race was asleep when Mickey separated the two. Knowing that her future daughter-in-law wanted to say goodnight to her son, Mickey told her that it was alright to come in. However, she did not expect to fall asleep along with Riaz and Issei in the rocking chair, as the stress of the past few days finally caught up to her. Being in a family place had placed her mind at ease, and so as she rocked back and forth, it was only natural to fall asleep. As the Haidu Mansion family fell quiet, the Himajima clan were having their own party. As the Haidu Mansion family fell quiet, the Hajim clan were having their own party. However, it was not a joyful experience. All of the members of the clan came to the hidden burial grounds in the mountains, where generations of Hajim clan members were laid to rest. It was considered a great honor to be buried here, but today did not look well. The Hajim clan suffered a huge loss by losing their future leader to the sniper. Now the clan only had one son left to take up the mantle, and he was only 2 years old. If this son were to die, then the only member left to lead the clan would be the child between Shuri and Barquil. This angered many of those loyal to Su, who were just as hardliners in their views of the supernatural worlds. However, a new majority of the family were angry at Su himself, as he let the situation play out like it did. Now, everyone that even had a small connection to the family was frowned upon by all of Japan. There have even been a few demonstrations during the later part of the week, during the final diet meeting, where a few of the shrines under the Hajim's care were destroyed. The general public was angry at the clan, and it had shown to many in the clan that there was a need for new leadership. In fact, a few rumors were abound about assassinating Su, his wife and son, in order for another person to take the role of clan leader. There had also been a few rumors about having Suzaku, Shuri's sister, to take the throne. She had been adamant about leaving Shuri and Barakiel alone, and that if the clan continued to pursue the two, then the family would have a great loss. She knew of this because she was one of the few to have a precognition ability. She was often heard during the meetings of the leaders that if they did not change their ways, then the family would suffer. Turns out she was correct, and now the family, as well as the clan as a whole, were suffering the consequences of their leaders' inaction. Suzaku also had heard the rumors along with her father. Each would have to take a long time to think about what they would do in the future, but for right now both daughter and father mourned the loss of a brother and son. Even if he discovered the punishment for the actions he took. 2 hours after the funeral. Suzaku's pav. I had been kneeling and praying to the Shinto gods for the past 3 hours. My knees were sore and I was very sleepy. It had been a trying time for the clan, and it could have been avoided if father and the elder took my warning to heart. Now my foolish brother is dead, and a baby boy is going to be without a father. Not only that, but the clan as a whole has taken a major hit. Not just in face but also financially as well. Since the details of the attack had been made public, several shrines under our care have been burned down. Making the situation worse is that the repair cost as well as the contractors to bring materials to the sites have quadrupled in price, making a huge dent in the amount of money used to keep the shrine maintained. Since I am the final master, I am going to have many sleepless nights until I have a better understanding of the financial damages incurred by my brother's actions. As I walked to my room, I saw a small group of people start to approach me. I stopped when one of the men asked if they could have a minute, just a minute, of my time. I was unsure of it and was about to say no when she saw Maiko, the daughter of Susu and Tika, a woman from the Nakiri clan. In her arms was her newly born son, Tobio Ikus. Unlike most children born into the Himajima clan, Maiko wanted their son to take his father's original last name that he had before they became husband and wife. Seeing the emotional state that Maiko was in, I nodded my head and allowed the group into my room as I knew what they wanted to talk about. After an hour, the group left as I began to get ready for bed. They wanted to know if I would consider challenging my father for the position of head of the family. I had already been asked a few questions before and answered them just the same. I would only challenge him only to preserve the family from falling into civil conflict. After explaining that to them, I was finally allowed to get some much-needed sleep. I would be up early in the morning to start going over the records of the damaged shrines and make allocated funds for rebuilding available. Just before falling asleep, I said one final prayer to the gods in an attempt to ask them to watch over the clan. But I know that they would more likely than not look down on us, and to an extent, the clan deserved it. At the same time, Susu's quarters. His point of view. I was tossing and turning in my bed as I tried to get some sleep. My wife was thankfully in Akio's room, as the trauma of having your first son killed in front of the nation tended to have a deep emotional mark on a person. Having no luck in going to bed, I got up and placed my family robe on. Walking into the section of my room that held our family's heirlooms, I walked past scrolls, books, weapons, shields and paintings passed down through generations of family heads. Akio loved walking through this area as he was infatuated with them. He especially liked the paintings of past family heads which lead to the section one was now looking at. It was the sword of the phoenix, a beautiful katana with the colors of the phoenix covering it from tip to base. It was gifted to us by the sun goddess to defend humans from the dangerous spears that covered the lands, and we have ever since. But now that I look at the sword, I now wonder if it is really worth it. Is the power that I wield wrought the sight of my family falling apart? I was raised in a different time. A time where fallen angels, devils and even angels were considered monsters, and that we should kill them if they dared to enter our territory. However, some of the other clans began to make small deals with those three factions, allowing some of their species to enter and leave Japan at will. Hell, even the gods themselves handed out special badges to allow members of the faction to enter the shrines without feeling pain, to increase the funds for the maintenance of the shrines. Our own clan has a large sack of these badges, but I had never allowed them to be passed out as I still believed at the time we received them that all three were evil, and did not have the interests of humans in the best of light. However, since it was the goddess Amaterasu who handed ours too, we had to accept them or else we would. No, I would have brought shame to the clan. I also know that I can't simply start to change right now. There are just too many hardliners that would not allow anyone other than the humans to enter the shrines, even if they had these badges. As I looked at the badges, I picked up the swords. Giving one last look at the badges, I took the sword and left from my personal training room. It was a special room as it was fireproof, which allowed me the ability to let loose with the power of Phoenix that I held within my body. Taking my stance, I began to practice. Slashing, thrusting, swinging the sword like I was trained to do. I allowed the fire to cover me as I blocked fake swords from hitting me, and spread my fire onto the training dummies in front of me. After 3 more hours and several breeds of sweets later, I placed the swords back in its place and entered the bathhouse. As I entered the warm water, I finally realized the error of my ways. It may be cynical for me to believe that my son's death would be what finally makes me listen to my Suzaku, but now I really have no other choice in the matter. My country is angry because of Akio attacking not just the Haidu family, but the USA. That nation is the only reason why we are not in a slave state like China and North Korea are today. Who knows what would have happened had the US not been the occupation force that settled on the mainland. Just thinking about it sends shivers down my spine. As I completed my next actions, a messenger entered the bathhouse and handed me a letter. I already knew what it was as I had noticed the seal on it. It was from the elders, members of the clan that have been around a long time and put together are just as strong as me. I don't even need to read the contents of the letter as I already knew what it was. They were summoning me to tell me what is going to happen to the clan now. Those 5 old hags are even more hardliners than myself, and are the reason behind our clans disapprove of supernatural beings. They're probably going to tell me to hand the seat of the leader to my son, even though he is just a boy, or they want me to lock up Suzaku. I really hope it is not an elimination order. That would spark the civil conflict that I know is starting to brew within the family. And since they all will be there, it would be a very bad struggle to fight them off. Hell, they might just make it a trap and kill me to take the position for themselves. I soon find the motivation to sleep, even with this new letter laying heavy on my mind. Hopefully the gods will guide us, but after what happened I doubt they are right now. 3rd POV. Deep in the underworld, a group of beings are sitting around an elongated table. These beings were meeting to plan one goal: total and complete chaos. Many of these beings were alive during the Great War, and were dissatisfied when the 3 great powers created the ceasefire agreement. One of those beings was Cockabile. As a man that believes in fallen angel superiority, this group of people was a group he liked. Wanting to start the war again was a goal he wanted to accomplish. They all had just finished watching the video of the assassination that he directed. The other members were silent until one woman asked, "It is impressive, but are you sure the USA is not going to link the attack to us?" "Of course not," my man made sure of that. "He hasn't been found before and will not be found now. Not with the amount of money I have and continue to pay him. He wouldn't be found and we will have a trump card in our operations." Cockabile smiled. After the video ended, the group applauded his action, and a few asked to have the contact information for the assassin. After a few more decisions, the group dismissed themselves, leaving Cockabile and one other man in the room. The man was 6'5", with long blonde hair that reached down to his back. He wore a white military uniform with gold trimmings on his left sleeve with a gold shoulder cap holding 4 feathers. Hanging on his right shoulder was a white fur cape that touched the floor while he held a scepter in his right hand. Once everyone was gone, the man tapped a button on his chair. A hologram of a man appeared. The unknown man looked with his green eyes, as Cockabile became very happy at the sight of the hologram as he said, "It still surprises me that you were able to get that from Hades." Cockabile said as he examined the hologram. He knows that when we start, he will get more debt to collect. It is just simple for him to lend us this in order to improve our goals. Besides, we both know that Michiel would never check up on this thing. The man said with a sneer grin. Looking back at the man, Cockabile asked. He was working on research and development. A very close associate, however. I would like it if you also did a few experiments, if you were so inclined. Cockabile just nodded as his communicator began to light up. Glancing at it, Cockabile cursed as it was Azazel requesting his presence for a meeting. Looking back to the man as he prepared to leave, Cockabile said, "Give me a few days to set up an area that Azazel won't be able to track. Don't need that man snooping around and finding out what we are planning now." The man simply smiled as his green eyes sparkled as Cockabile as he disappeared into the light as he left. The man then looked to the sky as he awaited for chaos to arrive. As the people of Issei's homeworld slept, another world was just waking up. It was a world just like Issei's with all of the modern convenience one could ask for. Unfortunately, with progress came conflict as humans sought to use their technology for war. What started as an idea to help people turned into a war machine as the period of peace turned to a war for humanity's survival. The enemy did not have a name at first, but the people of this earth soon began to call them the Sirens. There were many types of these futurist enemies ranging from mass-produced to the very leaders of the group. But all shared a theme, with large primarily black, mechanical extensions on their bodies, that ranged from cannons to metal constructs. Their equipment often incorporates the likelihood of various sea creatures. As the fighting grew, more and more men became the victims of the Sirens, becoming the very thing that they fought against. See, the Sirens had found a way to turn humans into their warriors and breeders. As such, the male population of this earth began to shrink as the humans lost more and more territory. The whole of Africa became an abandoned wasteland, while many had to leave the many habitable islands all over the world, as humanity was pushed back to the great coastal cities of Minsk, London, New York, San Diego, Dingia, St. Petersburg, Wilhelmshaven, Gibraltar, Alexandria, Taranto, Naples, Marseille, and Brest. As the Sirens looked down the Atlantic Ocean and became a menace in the Pacific Ocean, raiding merchant ships trying to deliver supplies to the rest of the world. A scientist named Dr. Issei and an unnamed man created the answer to the Siren threat. They were called Kinetics Artifactual Navy Self-Regulative and Lore Node, or CANSEN. But they soon became known by another name, Shipgirls. Using a material called the Wisdom Cube, which was discovered by Issei's boss Dr. Anziel, Dr. Issei and the unnamed man were able to use the energy in the Wisdom Cubs to embody various naval warships from human history into human form as young girls to adult women. These shipgirls were then able to manifest weapons and the hulls of their ship, as they are the physical manifestation of human will, along with their emotions, feeling, thoughts, and imaginations. And since they are also warships, they had the information of battle tactics, fighting experiences, and mastery of their weapons from their hulls, allowing a newly created shipgirl to fight in battle after a full day of training. After the US Navy sent a small force to protect an informational convoy to the rest of the world, the Kansas Sen became humanity's light in the darkness. They started to push back the Sirens as more and more shipgirls came into reality. As this was going on, the remaining members of the nation's government reorganized their governing bodies into a military one. The former US became the Eagle Union, the British Parliament became the Royal Navy, the Russians became the Northern Parliament, the Chinese became the Dragon Emperor, the Germans became the Iron Blood, Japan became the Sakura Empire, the Italians became the Sardegna Empire, and the French became the Iris Liber. Unfortunately, since the world had been cut off for many years, all of the newly established organizations did not control well with each other, as each had developed back to ideas during the long-ago days of World War II. As such, when the organizations created Azure Lane, the peace treaty to defeat the Sirens and return humanity to the sea, there were already cracks in the peace. Despite this, the shipgirls worked together to clear the Pacific Ocean of the Sirens, and then began the long push to the Siren headquarters in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. After many hard-fought battles, the shipgirls of Azure Lane were finally able to destroy the Siren headquarters. This forced the Sirens out of the plant, and an uneasy peace returned to the world. That peace would not last, however, as the heads of Iron Blood, Sakura Empire, Sardegna Empire, became partners in using Siren technology as part of their defenses, and creating new weapons to defend ships. The Eagle Union, Royal Navy, and Iris Liber did not use Siren tech, as they feared that the Sirens would be able to control those ships created by humans against themselves, and so the split of Azure Lane happened. The Iris Liber soon split, however, for the same reasons, which created the Vicha Dominion, who would join the Crimson Axis. After many years of an uneasy peace, the Crimson Axis, led by the Sakura Empire, engaged in a war against the rest of Azure Lane. This war, according to the Sakura's leaders, was to force the rest of the world to use Siren technology to defeat the many mass-produced ships they had created. Unfortunately, the two leaders of this war were actually brainwashed by the Sirens while they were studying the wrecks of Siren ships. The Sirens were able to convince the two that they could bring back a sister they had lost due to compilations to her rigging. The only way to bring her back, however, was to get data from fighting other shipgirls, and gather it into a black mental cube. Throughout the soon-to-be-named reenactment war, Sakura and Iron Blood shipgirls began to fight Eagle Union and Royal Navy. The fighting soon dragged the Dragon Emperor and the rest of the factions in as the mental cube gathered more and more data. After a decisive battle in the Mirror Sea, a special area created by Sirens to help in battles and training, one of the Sakura's leaders was defeated, and the mental cube was secured by the Eagle Union. Unfortunately, the mental cube had everything it needed, and so the sirens reappeared and attacked the base that was holding the black cube. After retrieving it, the sirens tested a new weapon that the Iron Blood was creating, vaporizing an island that was uninhabited. Upon realizing that the sirens were the ones playing everyone, the shipgirls reunited once again and fought together to destroy the superweapon called Irachi, and rescue the two brainwashed shipgirls. After a hard-fought battle, the Kensen were victorious in the end, and a new reality was created. The sirens were and forever their enemy, not each other. And the second was that the sirens were always watching and waiting to strike. Because so much attention was on the war between the Kensen, the sirens returned to the Arctic Ocean. This forced the Northern Parliament into a constant battle to defend the North from the sirens, as they had deepened their hold of the area. Not only that, but the sirens were soon discovered to be building a wall, a literal fortress, in the Atlantic once again. This fortress was something that the shipgirls had never fought against before, and meant that they would now have to fight two full fronts, while also defending against the many raids and reenactments that were led by sirens. After many trials and tribulations, the shipgirls mended the past. The Vicha Dominion and Iris Libra rejoined under the new name of the Iris Orthodoxy, which is what both factions were called before the split. The rebuilt Azure Lane was finally able to push the sirens out of the Arctic Ocean. They were even able to destroy a siren leader by the name of Compiler. However, the fortress in the Atlantic got even more difficult, and the raiding fleets became more numerous. As such, most of the Azure Lane girls have been stationed in the Pacific Base, most commonly known as Home 1. Azure Lane Home 1 Base, Midway, Central Pacific, Eagle Union Dormitory. 6 o'clock, hours. As Issei was sleeping in his home on his world, a young woman can be found sleeping in her quarters after a very hard-fought battle. She had been guiding a resupply convoy when the sirens sent a very large raiding fleet to intercept this cargo. However, she has been used to this fighting ever since she was created, and with only a few minutes of fighting, she wiped out the attacking force. When she got back to base, however, she got fussed at by her close friend and her easy aggravated nurse. It was only when the young woman had hugged the two that she finally got to her room, where a very lovely English dinner was waiting for her. After a few minutes to take a warm shower and file her report, she finally laid down to sleep. In her dream, she saw a very faint figure. He had no features on him, except the aura field that was sounding him. He was as tall as her, that much she did know, and she was about to say something when the scene changed. She was now in a hospital bed, surrounded by her friends and lovers as they were waiting for something. She did not know what that thing was until she felt the pain in her lower pelvic. It hit her like a 5,000-pound bomb, and she gripped with her hands onto someone's hand as another, sharp pain hit. The pain felt so real, like it was really happening in real time, that she could think clearly. The only thing that she did know was the same figure as before was the one she was clinging onto. She soon watched as the figure gently whipped her face with a cool towel, and placed a few kisses on her head. When that happened, the pain lessened, but it was still there. After what seemed like hours, the pain finally left. When she felt a new warmth in her arms, the young woman looked down to her arms. In them was a small child with short white hair. The child's eyes were closed, but the young woman knew that the child had her eyes. She then noticed that the child had the same colors as the figure, although there was an added white hue to it. She then felt the figure gently kiss her, but this time on the lips. They kept that way for what seemed like hours before they separated. Then she heard the voice. "I will see you soon, my love." Before she could reach out or call out, she felt the dream start to dissipate. Real world. As the young woman was sleeping in her bed, her friend entered the room. It was early morning now, and the young woman was needed for a mission debrief. The friend was wearing the standard maid outfit for the royal maid, with an added neck cooker and a broken chain. The maid watched as the young woman started to move on the bed, and after a few minutes, the young woman finally woke up. As the young woman opened her eyes, the maid said while smiling, "Good morning, dear. Sorry to wake you, but the commanders want to see you." The young woman only watched as her friend finished placing the cover out of the way to allow the sun into the room. The young woman smiled back as her night shirt fell off of her, revealing her ample chest to the world. She answered, "I always hate being woken up during good dreams. It must have been a good one. I could hear you when I got to the door. I thought you were already up and playing with those two. But when I got in, I only saw you. Mind if I ask about it?" the maid said. The young woman smiled as she hugged the maid and kissed her cheeks. "Only after breakfast, speaking of which. What is for breakfast?" the young woman asked as she disrobed and got into her uniform. The young woman's uniform consisted of a sleeveless white vest, black short skirt with gold lining, and a black sleeved cape with a red interior. Once she was dressed, she heard a tapping on the window. Opening it, her pet soon rested on her right shoulder as it rubbed its head on the young woman's cheek as she said, "Good morning, Reaper. You had a good hunt." The eagle screeched its answer as the maid handed the bird a fish snack. "It seems that she did, Enterprise. It is time for your breakfast," the maid said while curtsying. "Lead the way, Belfast." The now named Enterprise said to her friend and lover, the royal maid Belfast. As the two walked to the shared cafeteria, Enterprise and Belfast said hello to everyone that they passed by. It is not surprising, as Enterprise was the most decorated ship girl in the world. No one has come close, and there is a reason for that. As soon as she sat down and began to eat, her body soon split, revealing another Enterprises. The two are identical to the other except the clothing. The newly appeared Enterprises wore more tattered clothing and had shorter hair than the other women. Enterprise was the only ship girl in the world to have two separate souls. Her second soul, named Code G or just G, was from another world. A world that did not have sirens destroying humanity or Ken-sen fighting on the high seas. All of the combat that G had encountered found its way to Enterprise, and during the end of the reenactment war, both Enterprises combined their souls to join their power and experiences that allowed the two to defeat Ordi. As Enti started to eat, G started to poke the side of her cheek as she said, "Come on Enti, tell your girl what your dream was. She is giving you the death stare." True to her word, Belfast was sitting across from the two and was staring daggers at Enti. After taking a sip of her tea, Enti begins to speak. "When I feel asleep, I found myself in a white room. At first I was a little shaken as I had no idea where I was, but I then felt it Issei. Like someone was gently hugging me. After a time, I soon saw a figure. I couldn't tell who or what it was, but it felt very gentle, and I couldn't feel any hostility from it. The scene then changed. I was laying on a hospital bed. You, Vestal, Akagi, Kaga and several other people were around me. I did not know what was happening to me, but I felt the same figure holding my hand and kissing my forehead. Enti possessed as she blushed red on her cheeks. Belfast was also blushing. It was every ship girl's dream to find that one person that looked at them as actual women and not weapons of war. Even if they had the bodies of goddesses, many of the remaining men in their world did not view them as women. They only saw them as weapons to keep them safe from the sirens. Of course, there were a few that had found a male person like Ajax, a light cursor from the Royal Navy or some of the Japanese distilleries, but they are the minority. As such, many ship girls only have affections for each other. Take Enterprise and Belfast as an example. Both girls have had a very rough start, as Enterprise had allowed the pressure of being the strongest ship girl deprived her of the finer things in life. She became the weapon that she thought humanity needed. It was only when Queen Elizabeth, leader of the Royal Navy ship girls, sent Belfast to help her during the reenactment war. It was a tough love in the beginning, but after Enterprise, with help from Belfast, was able to find new hope inside of her and was able to stop the war. After the war, Belfast and Enti entered into a very deep relationship and had become a couple 2 years after the end. It was the reason why the two blushed as both shared the same dream, to have a child. It was a simple dream, but difficult to materials. While ship girls had the reproductive system of regular women, they were again only seen as weapons, and as such, most of the available males only saw them as weapons and not mother material. Even if the remaining government offered money to any available males, they just don't want to. After a few seconds, Enterprise said. After a few mientes, I began to feel a pain in my pelvis. It hit like a he shell during practice. I could hear Vestal telling me to push. She was even more red than before as she feels impressed. At this time, everyone in the cafeteria started to listen to the story. After what seemed like hours, I felt something exist in my body as the figure began to kiss me on the lips again, and another figure started to wipe my body. Enterprises said as she held Belfast's hand. She was so beautiful, Belle. She had short white hair, and her little hands wrapped around my fingers. I wish I could see her eyes, but she still had them closed, and after crying a few minutes, she began to feed. I felt the milk coming from my breast, Belle. I was actually a mother. And he said with excitement as Belle only held her hands while blushing. After the end of the reenactment war, Belfast and Enterprise were able to get to know each other better. It is how both women knew that they both wanted a child. Even if it was just one child, they wanted one. However, neither have had a dream like this. Belfast was very happy for her, but she was worried. Enti was a headstrong woman, and if she might force a male to fuck her in order to get a baby, now that she had such a vivid dream. Unnoticed by Enti. The other girls, which included her sisters Yorktown and Hornet, also shared the same look as everyone else. While they were happy for her, they too had a worry about her. However, they had a busy start to the day, and so everyone finished their breakfast, and both Enterprise and Belfast headed to the command room. 4 hours later. Enti and Belle were exiting the briefing room after a 4-hour meeting. Entry was a little angry. She got a stern talking to by not just Vestal, but all 4 of the human fleet commanders. While Enti is strong, she oftentimes uses the combined power she and Koji have access to. Which isn't a problem most of the time when she is with other ship girls. However, it is a problem when she uses that power when she is alone. It takes a lot of power and mental stability to control that power, which means that she is very vulnerable after she returns to her original form. Not only that, but her rigging receives more damage during the combined power. Meaning that Vestal had to work extra hard in fixing Enti's rigging. As a punishment, Enti had to help the other girls with their manitanes, while Vestal was busy in the carrier's dry dock with Enti's ship. which meant Enterprise could leave the port for 5 days. Belfast held her hands as she said, "Come on now, Enterprises, you know that we are stretched thin. We can't send you out with a large support fleet or even a small one. Remember, we have to keep the other bases from the Sirens and make sure they don't land forces on what is left of humanity's strongholds. We lose those, we lose the war." She then kissed Enti's head as Enti knew she was right. Being the strongest meant that she had the best chance of fighting the Sirens' raiding fleet that appeared by herself, which allowed the others to focus on the other Siren threats and have actual rest periods in between missions. Now, the others are going to have to pull extra shifts at mech and escorts until Enterprise's ship is fully repaired. Now, the other ship girls don't mind it, as it gives them a different change of paces to their other missions. Since it is a Konyov, it travels in a basic path of travel, and you don't have to rush to the area of trouble. They are able to take it easy and enjoy the trip. It is Naval HQ that has the problem with Enti. Even now, those in the higher command often wish for Enti to be placed on a desk job, or become an instructor for other ship girls vacuous of Enti's ability to fuck up HQ's plans, which everyone under them doesn't mind one bit. But they are the ones calling the shots, even if they are located in a secure bunker in San Diego, meaning that everyone has to do whatever they say. Belfast gave Enti a hug and said that she would see her later. Elle had a scouting mission in another hour and had to leave. Enti just nodded, wishing to go with her, but orders are orders. Walking in the other direction, Enti left the common building and walked her way to the repair and dry dock yards, where 4 ship girls awaited her. These were the 3 distilleries, Laffy from Eagle Union, Ainami from the Sakura Empire, and Javelin from the Royal Navy, and the light aircraft carrier Unicorn from the Royal Navy. These 4 were long-time friends and had helped Enterprise a lot during the reenactment war. It was after Ainami was captured during the later part of the war, and a quick friendship established between the 4 that allowed cooler heads to prevail. It reminded everyone that while they are under different nations, they have the same goals and became a shining example of camaraderie after the war. Out of all of the groups that undertake missions, these 4 are usually sent out together without much oversight. Sure, they are on the younger side as ships go, but they have had many missions under their belts and work similarly with each other without fail. Most of the time. Today's mission was an oddball for them, however. They were sent to patrol an island that had been created by the Sirens in a Mori Sea that somehow appeared into the real world. The Sirens have had a nasty habit of creating mirror seas and then leaving the space after they don't have a use for it. As a result, sometimes the mirror sea joins the world, which causes the world to change to fit the new features. This island, designated as Vacation Island from now on by HQ, was one of these undiscovered mirror sea, and after a day or two to make sure that there was no siren actively on the island, HQ would allow the girls free reign on the island to do as they wish. Basically, this new island would be made a private getaway for the ship girls, allowing them a place other than the major ports or HQ Pacific BASC HQPB from now on, to relax and enjoy time off. However, that did not mean that Sirens wouldn't be in the waters in between the HQPB and the VI. Which is why the 4 were patiently waiting for Enterprise at the dry dock. They ran into a small Siren fleet made up of 10 PAWNS destroyers, 7 KNIGHTS light cruisers, and 7 ASSASSINS submarines. While a fleet this size is not a hard thing to deal with for the 4, it is difficult when you ran into a group executor class earlier in the morning that were trying to raid a transport fleet just off the coast in the bay. That group consisted of 5 EXPLORERS destroyers, 5 TRACKERS light cruisers, and an OCANA heavy cruiser. What makes this earlier group different from the later group is that this group is the beginning of the change from ship form to a humanoid form. Even though they are lower level than other humanoid Sirens, it is a pain to deal with them quickly. They may not be as smart as some of the higher Sirens, but they aren't brainless either. Meaning that you have to take them by surprise if you want an end to a quick fight. It doesn't work all the time, and the 4 had to keep those 11 enemies at bay until Cleveland, Columbia and DENVER, all light cruisers from the Eagle Union, could give them assistance. After those 3 arrived, the group was swiftly dealt with. After that, the 3 sisters stayed with the transport fleet while the 4 left for the island. Combining the 2 battles, all 4 needed at least some repairs, which would take up most of the day. Upon seeing Enterprise enter the dry docks, the 4 raced to hug the legendary woman. It was the first time seeing her in mouths due to Enti being sent on escorting duties for the past 9 months. It just goes to show how much Enti takes off the shoulders of others when she isn't being punished for using her powers. After the group hug, Javelin asked, "You use your powers again without asking?" Enti nodded and said, "Yes, I did, and HQ told me to behave. It seems that you 4 had a rough time." This time Laffy spoke up. "Very hard. Very sleepy. Want to nap." She then fell asleep, dragging Javelin's clothing off. "Come on, Laffy, we have to get the repairs done before you can sleep. Get up." Ainami shouted as she picked up the fallen Laffy, while Javelin and Unicorn repaired the button that got destroyed when Laffy fell. Enti just laughed as the 4 began to list the repairs and ammo that they needed. And he then told the four about some equipment changes that they were going to get, and also told them that Laffy would be first as she had most to be done. After which, Onekran would get a new fighter and new armor for her flight deck, Ainami new torpedoes and launchers, and a new gun armament for Javelin. With the parts in place, the five began to work. 6 hours later, Dry Dock 1. After 6 hours of work, all of the girls were extremely tired. Like any refit on ships, there were always problems that came out during the process. Fortunately, with all of them working together they were able to finish the needed work, and the 5 girls had left the dry docks to test their weapons. As they left, the girls waved away to Enti as she returned the wave before turning to examine the next group of ships that would be showing up. Getting a list from one of the many Manjo little robots that were created to help in defending the bases and help in the daily functions as well as helping in the minor repairs to the ship girls. She soon saw Kashi, the only other repair ship in all of Azure Lane, and asked her for the materials that she would need for the next round of repairs and modernization. After 3 more ships came in for minor repairs, Enti was finally able to finish the day, and began to walk back to the barracks. As she walked, she came out once again as she wanted to talk about something. You think that you might one day be a mother? I not say that I don't think that it is not a possibility, but it is every difficult thing. Ji said as the 2 women, 2 sides of the same coin, held her breast as she thought about the words Enti had said earlier in the day. Enti nodded as she stopped and looked to the sea. Ever since Belle entered our life I have finally begun to think more about what I wanted. I have only known war for most of my days, but with Belle in it, I have found more hope in our shared future. I know that I will find a caring man someday, and we will have a wonderful child together. I just have to keep endeavoring that I will meet him soon. As they watched the setting sun, they saw Belfast's group returning and walked over the returning ships. Little did the girls of Azure Lane know that the man they would soon be longing for would soon be there, and the shared dream was soon in their grasps. That's it guys. Until the author add more chapters. Take care.